Hey, and welcome back to another video. This is the second episode of the story where Kushina is taken away from her son and then sold to Orochimaru. There, she is turned into his successor. 13 years later, she returns for revenge and her son. Please support by liking and subscribing. Let's start the show. Upon the signal, Kankuro leapt backwards, unfurling the white package on his back, revealing his puppet. Zaku quickly raised his arms and shouted, decapitating airwaves. Kankuro jumped left to avoid the wind wave. He sent his puppet right. Zaku tried to keep an eye on both, but the puppet suddenly charged, forcing Zaku to lose sight of Kankuro. Diving under the multi-armed jab, before making a roll to avoid impalement by a hidden wrist knife. Zaku raised his arm, aiming at one of the limbs. But he purposefully hesitated for a second, allowing Kankuro to move his puppet to avoid damaging it. Zaku rapidly backpedaled away from the puppet, who telegraphed its next attack, aiming two of its arms the same way Zaku did, before suddenly a slot opened and a hail of senbon shot out. Zaku aimed his own arms with open palms. Decapitating airwaves, he countered, blowing away the needles. The puppet dodged and fired another volley, which Zaku countered. The puppet's mouth flew open, showing the hidden launcher underneath. Unable to see Kankuro himself, Zaku took it as a signal to get hurt. However, getting hit from this distance would look suspicious, so he charged, making it look like he would try to destroy the puppet up close. The puppet also shot forward, hidden wrist blades popping out of each arm. As the pair closed, the mouth launcher fired, Zaku dodged, but left his legs exposed. 2 bites of pain informed him he successfully got himself hurt. Damn, seeing yourself getting hurt as a mission, what I do for Odo, he thought wryly to himself. Soon enough, his vision started to blur, his sense of balance started to feel off, nearly getting himself cut up by a slash from the puppet. Rapidly retreating, he shouted loudly, "What did you do to me?" Zaku sincerely hoped Kankuro understood his poison took hold. He would not be able to dodge properly in this state. He did, the puppet halted its charge. From the trees on the arena, Kankuro shouted back, "You have been poisoned, forfeit." Zaku found he put up a convincing display of frustrated anger, before sloughing, "I forfeit, give me the antidote," he demanded. "Winner by forfeit, Kankuro," Genma declared. "Don't worry, it's not lethal," Kankuro replied as he revealed himself, "You'll be on the toilet for a while though." He walked towards the place he dropped the bandages he used to hide his puppet in, and rewrapped it, taking a long time to do so. Getting the hint, Zaku charged off the arena, rushing by the medics who came up. He sensed a couple followed him. Rushing into a public stall, he closed the door behind him, and started to make convincing sounds that he was very sick. Meanwhile, he took the vial Kankuro handed to him. "Are you all right, sir?" The medic asked, unable to see him. "No, I am acting like I am throwing my insides out, of course I am all right," Zaku thought. Putting up the though ninja act, he slurred out, "I will be fine." He heard the medic sigh, "Just remember to drink enough water, but take it slowly." As soon the medics were gone, Zaku henged himself and snuck out, intent to rejoin his team before the invasion kicked off. Kage balcony while Zaku was putting up an act. The Kages discussed their match. Kushina sighed outwardly, but inwardly she was impressed by both how they improvised the fight without orders and actually did it without spending themselves. Zaku is not ready to become a chunin if he plays by the puppeteer's rules without trying to break free. The Hokage nodded his assent, "I agree, I am not sure about Kankuro. He did not get the chance to show enough, he did strike me as not decisive enough." The Kazekage nodded. "I agree," he stated simply, inwardly he was thinking hard. Why did Zaku allow himself to be hit by the mouth launcher? Wait. Didn't Kankuro mention he would hide his debilitating agent in it today? Oh, you are getting promoted, my boy. He finished his thoughts with an hidden smile. Crowd stands. Ibiki narrowed his eyes as Zaku made his escape. The same feeling of wrongness he had been feeling a lot lately, surfaced once again. He suspects some of his fellow ninja also saw the several hesitations through the fight. Are they friends? He asked himself. The interactions between the genin during the first exam and preliminaries would not indicate so. The Otokage and Kazekage are quite friendly with each other, however. I don't like this, there are too many fishy things going on. Ibiki rose to his feet, intent to chat with Zaku. Can't drag him to TNI, the nonsense it would trigger is too dangerous, especially if they were hesitating because they are friends or some other stupid reason. A bear was now on the prowl, the beast sadly smelled its prey too late. Arena, will Temari of Suna and Nara Shikamaru make their way down here? Genma asked. Temari leaped out of the alcove, floating down serenely towards her spot thanks to her opened fan. Shikamaru stood, and lazily started to raise his hand. Naruto saw the action, and realized Shikamaru would declare it to be troublesome and forfeit. That he would do that for something as important as this, he couldn't help but think, even with the knowledge the event would be cancelled soon. Still, Sasuke isn't here, time to buy some more time. He thought with a smirk. Show some backbone, Shikamaru, he shouted, before booting the lazy Nara bodily out of the alcove and into the arena. Shikamaru landed face first into the hard ground, but somehow prevented getting himself hurt. Naruto took the subsequent complaints about troublesome blondes as a jolly good job well done. The Nara picked himself up, and slowly sloughed his way to his position. Genma, seeing the girl was rearing to go, looked at Shikamaru. Are you ready? He asked. How troublesome, I don't want to hurt a girl. Temari's eyebrow started to twitch in anger. Genma, upon seeing this, decided to start the match not to get caught in the feminine fury. Very well, he spoke. Solemnly, fight. And with that, he hightailed to the arena edge. His retreat proved to be right. Upon the word fight, Temari fully deployed her fan, and with a mighty swing, tried to bisect the Nara, her own plans to stretch out the fight forgotten. Shikamaru proved to be agile, and ducked under the horizontal cutting wind, before leaping to the closest forested area in the arena. Slashing winds hot on his heels. I can destroy these trees, but that will cost me more chakra than I want to use, she thought. Her pause gave Shikamaru to think. Sinking down into his thinking pose while hidden, he formulated a strategy. Forming in hand seal, a shadow shot out. Temari, recognizing what happened, jumped backward. Leaping onto the branch of a tree, he threw the first kunai. Temari dodged, her eyes narrowing as she tried to figure out what the Nara's plan was. She started to slowly circle around, before she had to jump back, his shadow reaching much further this time. Did he fake his limit last time, she asked herself, then she saw, thanks to her movement, the shadows of the trees were pointed towards her. His shadow can piggyback on other shadows. Before she could think further, another kunai shot from the foliage, forcing her backwards. She itched to swing her fan and retaliate, but each kunai came from a different spot, meaning unless she went all out, she would not be able to land a hit. Gritting in her teeth in frustration, she allowed herself to be herded around. She suddenly saw something in the corner of her eye. A parachute. He tries to make a spot for his shadow to extend to. She moved the other way, gaining distance. Thinking she had seen through his plan. The sudden freezing up told her otherwise. How? She asked, shocked. In response, he turned his head, and her turned with it. The parachute she saw earlier was just a part of the plan. His shadow extended from the forest, into the shadows of a few of the thrown kunai, through the shadow of the parachute. Into the trench Naruto made when he attacked to break Niji's Kaiten. The large semicircular trench was deep enough to cast a shadow inside it. Temari stood on the other end. Shikamaru raised his hand, Temari was forced to follow. What is he doing? The girl thought, panic coming to the front. Proctor, I forfeit. Genma blinked, winner by forfeit, Temari. Why? You had me. Temari demanded. I am nearly out of chakra, and winning would be too troublesome. Temari felt the urge to pummel the lazy Nara. But refrained. She huffed childishly, before walking towards the exit of the arena. Kage balcony, a very tactical fight, I would suggest you both promote them. Kushina advised. Hiruzen spoke up, I agree with Shikamaru, but Temari, no offense to your daughter Kazuka Jidono, just went along. Kushina shook her head, no, she tried to form counterplan, and did not unleash wanton destruction trying to get her objective. Restraint is an important part too, something most genin lack. The Nara, as expected from the clan, just proved superior during this tactical play. The Kazekage tapped his chin, I will consider it, I will ask if Baki thinks she is ready. Would Gaara of Suna and Uchiha Sasuke from Konoha enter the arena? Genma shouted. Once again, Gaara appeared in a storm of sand. But his opponent was nowhere to be seen. The public started to get restless. Genma glanced at Hiruzen, waiting for the order to disqualify him. He turned to his fellow Kages. Well then, shall I disqualify him? The Kazekage nodded slowly, seeing no way to delay the match further. Kushina also nodded. Hiruzen turned back to face Genma, and stood up to announce it himself. Before he could however, a whirlwind of leaves appeared in the arena, and Sasuke and Kakashi appeared. Kakashi smiled towards Genma. Are we on time? He asked innocently. Sasuke was seconds away from being disqualified. Kakashi smile disappeared, and he looked shocked to the Kage balcony. He stared straight into Hiruzen's disapproving eyes, but nearly dropped his book when he saw Kushina. Kushina is alive, he robotically teleported to his fellow Jonin sensei, a feeling of glee entered him, perhaps she is here to kill the demon. Getting revenge for her husband, she must have stayed out of sight to get stronger. He was pulled out of his thoughts by Guy's jabbering. Did you say something? He ignored Guy's rant about youth. Congratulations about Niji's victory, Kakashi spoke. Niji lost, Guy bit out. Not angry that Niji lost, but that Kakashi just presumed his own student was defeated. Kakashi looked surprised, he did, before scowling. Must be the demon's power then, I know it trains its mortal shell hard, but without proper guidance he shouldn't be strong enough to beat Niji. But how is this possible without anybody noticing? Down in the arena, Sasuke stood confidently, prepared to fall to the might of the Uchiha clan, he spoke out of rote. Gaara just looked bored, his arms crossed. I just have to fight this weakling for 5 minutes, then I can go all out against the strongest of this place. Yes. I will feel alive. He glanced at his siblings, and I will keep them safe. Sasuke gritted his teeth, annoyed at being ignored. Are you two ready? Genma asked. Well then, fight. Outside Konoha's walls, well hidden between the patrol routes provided by Odo's spies, covenants of summoners waited patiently. A watchman was keeping an eye on the life feed from the arena, signaled the men to gather their chakra into arrays of seals. Along the line, the men and women from Odo and Suna made their final checks, preparing to go into war. Sasuke shot forward in response, Sharingan blazing into life, showing greatly increased speed. His first straight jab was blocked by Gaara's sand defense. Sasuke rapidly sidestepped, jabbing again, this time his blow glanced off Gaara's sand armor. While the third blow was blocked again. Raising an eyebrow in interest, Gaara released more sand. The extra sand blocking the next flurry of blows. Getting bored again, Gaara raised an arm, sand flowing further out of the gourd. Suna shuriken, he intoned, the sand rapidly shaping into shuriken, before launching themselves at Sasuke, who ducked under first wave, leapt over the second before backpedaling further. Thanks to his bloodline, easily predicating the paths of the projectiles. Sasuke scowled, despite avoiding any damage himself, he had yet to land a blow. His pride was getting hurt. Gently tapping into the cursed seal, he felt extra power flow through him. Kakashi raised an eyebrow, he faintly felt the cursed seal power, but he didn't see the telltale dark chakra. Anko felt it too, and she started to feel her own seal, hissing all the while. Kakashi considered interfering, but with the Hokage displeased by his lateness, he did not want to ruin Sasuke's chances to become Chunin. Gemna seemed not to notice. With increased speed and vigor, Sasuke charged forward again, once again landing blows through Gaara's mobile sand defense. But none of the damage truly stuck, and soon Sasuke sported a bloody gash on his arm when a sand shuriken managed to nick him. Despite the warning from his eyes, he couldn't move away quickly enough. Growling in frustration, but unable to draw more power on the mark lest it becomes visible, he decided to pull out his ace. Getting distance from Gaara, he was glad the deranged boy stayed on the spot. Like a loyal puppy waiting to be kicked, Sasuke thought cruelly, as he started the 12-hand seals. Chidori, he exclaimed, lightning chirping like 1,000 birds. Putting his remaining power into his legs, Sasuke shot forward, Chidori charged hand hanging low, cutting a shallow trench. Despite what the outside world thought, Gaara had learned a lesson from fighting Lee. It is one thing feeling alive fighting a strong opponent, but taking a pummeling is a bad idea. It worries the few people he cared about. Hence as Sasuke rapidly closed, he pulled apart his gourd, and pulled as his sand into a solid wall in front of him. The moment he was sure he was out of the Uchiha's sight, he started to move out of the way. Too late however, and a lightning-charged jab broke through the wall, cutting into his shoulder. Red liquid started to gush from the wound. Gaara looked horrified at it. "My blood," he managed to exclaim, looking back at the wall. Frowning, he pushed the entire structure away from him with his chakra. A loud thud indicating he succeeded in pushing away the Uchiha. As the sand regathered around him, he locked eyes with his sister and brother. He saw unabashed worry in both their eyes, and his anger surged, an insane glint appearing in Gaara's eyes. Words failed him. "Die," the boy raged, tapping into Shikaku's chakra. Kushina cursed inwardly, fervently hoping at least the eyes would survive the mauling from the enraged Jinchuriki. She glanced at Shinkuro, whose hand was resting on the arm of the chair, one finger extended. Sasuke, who initially beamed his superiority, was now forced to run for his life. The angered Gaara launched one sharp sand projectile after the other. It was clear for everyone present the very earth Gaara stood on was grinded into sand by chakra alone, fueling the barrage. Kushina, realizing that Gaara might be too enraged to notice the starting signal, discreetly dropped some explosive tags under her seat. When Shinkuro pulled in his last finger, both leaped upward, Shinkuro using his hand to drag a surprised Hiruzen by the scruff of his neck. The rest of the public saw the Kage balcony suddenly be covered in smoke. Moments later, it violently exploded. Hiruzen didn't become Hokage for his good looks. After a moment of confusion, he shook himself free, quickly jumping away from Shinkuro. Before he could look for an escape however, a large purple barrier surrounded the trio. Powered by the Sound Four, who went into the first state of the cursed seal, black markings spreading all over their body. "Betraying your allies Shinkiro," he demanded. "Don't act innocent Hiruzen," Shinkiro replied coolly, "you truly thought we would not find out about you bribing away Suna's missions?" Hiruzen turned towards Kushina, "And why are you attacking me?" Kushina shrugged like it was a minor matter. "Betraying the whirlpool, allowing Danzo to reveal Naruto is a container, allowing my boy to be mistreated. Orochimaru had his own list of issues, but I am not going to name him. Although a special mention goes to your treatment of Anko, you like making scapegoats, do you?" Hiruzen could only sigh, now knowing there was no avoiding this conflict. He threw off his official Hokage garbs, revealing he was wearing battle armor underneath. "My old instincts were right, something would happen today." He took a battle stance. "The time for talk is over," he said sternly. Kushina lay a hand on Shinkiro's shoulder. "Good luck," the man merely nodded, and dropped 2 sealing scrolls on the ground, who unfurled and then released prodigious amounts of gold dust. Kushina dashed away. As she approached the barrier, she pulled a seal, the word "gate" prominently present. The seal touched the barrier, and a large hole appeared in both barriers. She smiled wickedly at the flabbergasted Anbu standing on the other side. On top of a spire overlooking the arena. Kabuto had a magnificent view as Kushina and Shinkiro scooped up Hiruzen and cleared the balcony. Undisturbed by the explosion, he finished the last hand signs. Temple of Nirvana. He spoke quietly, as feathers started to fall. He then set off on his own mission. Arena. The explosion shook Gaara out of his enraged state, and reminded him of his mission. Sending a large unfocused blob of sand towards the distracted Uchiha to keep him away, he quickly ran over to his siblings, who jumped down from the alcove and made their way to them. The pain from his shoulder preventing him from getting caught in the genjutsu. Gaara! Temari shouted, resisting the genjutsu that started to fall. Kankuro faltered a step, before recovering. Sorry, Gaara apologized. I did not. He started before a hug silenced him. It's alright, let's go. I'll look at it as soon we arrive at the target location. Gemna, who was confused what the hell was going on, decided to stop the trio. Stop, where are you going? He demanded. But before he could do more, Baki appeared between them. Go, do your mission. He commanded, before locking blades with Genma. Sasuke dug himself out, caught off guard by the huge blob of sand, nearly burying him alive. He looked confused at the fights breaking out around him. Genma saw the boy as he clashed again with Baki. Sasuke, go prove that you are a Chunin, follow Gaara and stop whatever they are planning. Roles reversed. It was now Genma that intercepted Baki, who tried to score a quick kill on the last Uchiha. Go! Sasuke dashed off. The moment the explosive tags went off, the hidden Suna and Oto ninja revealed themselves, slashing left and right, scoring many casualties in the surprise. Konoha's famous teamwork however quickly recovered and started pushing back, spearheaded by powerful combinations like Kakashi and Guy. Naruto, who was caught off guard by the genjutsu, finally completely shook himself out of it. Getting re-aware of his environment, he only saw a snoring Shikamaru. Gazing to the arena that was slowly turning into a battlefield, he spotted a certain duck-butt-haired boy giving chase to somebody. Figuring he was after Gaara, Naruto gave chase himself. Kakashi, momentarily not distracted, saw both boys give chase, and cursed. I can't trust Naruto to keep Sasuke safe, despite his surprising strength. He glanced around, spotting Sakura looking lost and Kiba unengaged. Quickly summoning Pakken, he called the two over. Sakura, Kiba. Sasuke and Naruto gave chase to Gaara. Gaara is planning something, go after them and back them up. He ordered. Kakashi wished Team Asuma or Guy were around, but both broken teams teamed up with other genin upon the orders of other Chunin or Jonin, and send on their own missions. Pakken, Kiba, Akamaru and Sakura carefully jumped off the stands into the arena, staying near the edge as more experienced fighters clashed in the center. Pakken sniffed, tomatoes and fox, I got them. He spoke confidently. Kiba and Akamaru sniffed too, agreeing. The group followed the tracks. The fighting hadn't started outside the arena yet. But Pakken, with his experience and advanced senses, knew it would happen soon. And quickly led the genin and dog after Sasuke and Naruto. Jiraiya sighed as he disappointedly gazed through his telescope. The hot spring he was peeking on was quite empty. I don't understand why Sensei needed me here. Jiraiya thought, this is the third hot spring that is empty. Collapsing his telescope, he hoped the next hot spring he had more luck. I don't understand what he worries about, aside from suddenly attacking the Uchiha. Ora team has been silent for quite a while now. He might have helped build Oto, but the current unknown leader is far too kind to his subordinates. A sudden explosion from the arena shocked Jiraiya out of his thoughts. Wonder what kind of genin could, he started to think, before his thoughts were interrupted by the alarm bells from the walls. His confusion grew when he heard the familiar sound of war from the arena. Stuck between deciding to rush over to the arena, or find out the disturbance was at the walls. Jiraiya stood undecided for a second, before a loud crashing noise made the choice for him. With a final burst of chakra, the cabal of summoners completed their task. And in huge puffs of smoke, a gigantic two-headed snake appeared, easily towering over the Great Wall Konoha. Flanking the massive beast were two large, normal, snakes. With a roar, the snakes charges forward. Below in the shadows of the beasts, the assembled forces shot forward, most rushing towards the gates. Others kill teams rushed out towards the most likely location of nearby patrols. Several teams followed behind the large snakes more sedately, letting the normal forces take the brunt of the damage. They had specific targets to kill. Most of these teams were from Oto. The snake's sudden appearance alerted the guards upon the gate, who quickly sounded the alarm. Before they could do anything more, the leading two-headed snake bodily slammed through the wall, spraying debris all over the buildings behind it. The other two snakes slithered over the wall, cracking the wall under their weight. Konoha ninja on the walls and behind them instantly started to pepper the large beasts with projectiles and jutsu. But their thick scales shrugged them off. Soon after, they also had to contend with the invading force, who followed the snakes through the breach. Ibiki, who was trying to track Zaku, after nearly losing him thanks to the henge, took command, cursing in his head all the while. I knew it, Kabuto, Zaku. Only question is if Naruto was involved. Hokage protection be damned, I am going to get some one-on-one time in my playroom with the boy. He thought bitterly. He hated it when he didn't get the truth on time. Thanks to Ibiki's leadership, the Suna/Oto troops were slowed down, but nothing Ibiki or his men could do would hinder the snakes. Until suddenly a giant red toad wearing a black kimono, wielding a Sasumata in one, and a light yellow shield in the other, appeared in the sky above one of the giant snakes, crushing it under the toad's weight. Ibiki sensed Jiraiya land next to him. Jiraiya-sama, you are just on time. Ibiki said. No, I am not, Jiraiya replied grimly, his face stern while he pointed to a concentration of ninja making their way past the ruined entrance. Gamaken, take care of the other snakes. He shouted. I will, although I am very ungraceful, the toad replied, stomping forward to the remaining single-headed snake, who coiled up, and shot forward. Snakes. So he is involved. I was wrong, Jiraiya thought. Gamaken blocked the snake with his shield, handily diverting it to the side. Overstretched, the snake couldn't move in time as Gamaken used his Sasumata as a large club, strike the snake with the pointy prongs, dispelling it. The two-headed snake watched this, and slithered slow circles around Gamaken, crushing buildings as it went, who recovered his stance, shield forward, Sasumata pointed as a spear. The two large summon watched each other wearily. Suddenly, the left head shot forward like a lightning strike, fangs poised. Gamaken moved his shield accordingly, and blocked the strike, ground shuddering under the combined impact. Attempting to counter with his Sasumata, Gamaken was forced to abort his strike, lest he kept himself open for the right head, who poised to bite his weapon arm off. As the two enormous summons did battle, the Konoha forces used the created no-go area to recover. However, the Suna/Oto forces were not interested dueling their counterparts, and flowed around the battle area, into Konoha proper to complete their missions. Jiraiya cursed, why did I not see this coming? Where is Orateam? He asked himself. Spread out, stop them from completing whatever missions they have. Ibiki added, be careful, there will be infiltration teams present. As Kushina cleared the barriers, which closed up behind her, she launched several snakes with her right hand, while her left palm shot a multitude of wickedly spiked chains, who like the snakes from her other hand wrapped themselves around the Anbu, the spikes cutting and burning into them, causing them to scream in agony as they bled to death. The few Anbu who managed to survive the onslaught leapt forward, drawing blades as they went. Kushina broke free her left hand, her chains going up into flames as she disconnected them from her, and hovered behind her lower back. A hidden seal glowed, and Kushina revealed the Kusanagi. Blocking the first strike while bending away from the second, she used her sword's sharpness to cut through the tanto the Anbu was using, the blade digging deep into the Anbu's chest. Pulling free, Kushina released the snakes on her right hand, and quickly jabbed the second Anbu in the chest, unbalancing him until she could right herself, and with a mighty swing, cut the Anbu from shoulder to hip. The last Anbu, seeing his comrade's quick demise, hopped back and started to make hand seals, finishing in a Tora seal. Fire belched forward, and in response Kushina raised her right palm, a multiple bundled chains shot forward towards the fireball, blossoming into an hollow sphere around the offending Anbu, blocking his attack and enveloping him. The sphere suddenly compressed, blood spurting out between his spikes. Quickly moving on the next part of the plan, Kushina resealed the blade. And knelt down to carefully ripped off 3 lengths from her dress. She lay the 3 pieces down, revealing they were large sealing tags, and with a burst of chakra, 2 coffins appeared and a set of kunai. With a quick push, both lids came free, revealing they were empty, but wood-edged with sealing formulas. Kushina walked over to the Anbu she had stricken with snakes, and was pleased multiple Anbu were alive but paralyzed by venom. She picked up 2, and tossed them carelessly into the coffins. She closed the lids and started to make hand seal. At the end, she clapped her hand, and put each hand on top of a coffin while intoning Kuchios, Edo Tensei. Screams were heard from the coffins, but the soon ended in a pained gurgle. Kushina meanwhile calmly walked towards the kunai, double-checking the seals wrapped around them. Both lids suddenly exploded away, and 2 people rose, their bodies cracked, eyes blank. Before they could do anything, Kushina rammed a kunai in each head, which sank deeper into them. Both men turned like puppets, revealing themselves to be Senju Hashirama and his brother Tobarama. Both looked disapprovingly towards Kushina, while just smiled slightly that her technique was a success. She initially planned to also use her dear husband too. But upon experimenting to reincarnate him in the lab to severely torture him, she failed. Kabuto later theorized he was not in the pure world, but truly in the Shinigami's stomach, and thus could not be revived. Kushina knew there was a way to free him, but she needed the location of the Uzumaki Shinigami temple, which she was never told despite being her clan's property. Her other experiments showed the dead subjects could talk, something she saw as an undesirable trait, so she modified Orochimaru's original tags with her Uzumaki seal brilliance, making them both more powerful, and permanently shutting them up if she wished so. Glad I did that, she thought, looking at the disapproving looks she received from the first and second Hokage. Both of them probably would have complained their heads off. I am ordering to destroy their own hard work. Hashirama, destroy the Akimichi compound and the emergency food storages, kill any Konoha ninja along the way. Tobarama, flood the Nara Deer Ranch and then destroy all the medical supply reserves they have. Both Kages dashed off. As they disappeared, she heard a surprised Kushina. Gaara, Temari and Kankuro ran into the warehouse. The sounds of war dimmed as the trio moved in further. As planned, the warehouse was empty, and the floor was broken up, allowing Gaara direct access to the earth. Gaara stop, Temari ordered. Kankuro, hand me the bandages you used to hide your puppet. Kankuro raised an eyebrow. Those aren't clean, she shot him a glare. Do you want Gaara to bleed to death then? Kankuro shook his head and unwrapped his puppet again, handing Temari the bandages. While Kankuro was unwrapping his puppet, she had quickly inspected the wound. It was very shallow, but the glancing nature lighting attack had broken a lot of skin, causing it bleed profusely. Temari carefully bound the wound, staunching the bleeding. She finished, and gave her youngest brother a quick hug, who started to fidget for worrying his siblings. The walls suddenly exploded inwardly, and out of the smoke walked Sasuke, arrogant smirk present. Here you are weaklings, prepare to feel the might of the Uchiha clan, he declared proudly, black wisps of chakra emerging from the seal. Gaara stepped forward to fight him. No Gaara, prepare to transform, we will handle him. Temari ordered. She and her brother stood in front of Gaara, fan and puppet at the ready. Gaara hesitantly walked to the broken-up floor, sank into a lotus position and started to draw upon Shikaku's chakra and pushed it into the soil below, grinding it into fine sand, charged with the beast's chakra. Sasuke, wishing to finish the fight with Gaara, convinced he could turn the tables of the fight before the explosion happened, charged forward, Sharingan blazing. His eyes easily predicted the slashing wind Temari shot his way with her fan, before dodging a multitude of senbon from the puppet's mouth. Sasuke, quickly going through the hand seals, puffed up his chest and belched fire with a cry of, Katan, Gokakya no Jutsu, towards the puppet, forcing Temari to halt her attacks lest the strengthens the flames. Kankuro pulled his puppet back hard, barely dodging the flames. The fireball flew on unimpeded, and struck the roof, setting it alight. Both Kankuro and Temari retreated away from the burning roof towards their brother. Temari unsure if using her wind jutsu would worsen the fire. Kankuro busy trying to figure out how the fire would spread, and how he would keep his puppet safe. Sasuke laughed, interpreting their retreat and hesitation as a victory. Ha ha ha, see that weaklings, you don't stand a chance against me, now out of the way. I want to fight Gaara. Kankuro gritted his teeth, thinking Gaara needed more time. I say screw the order Temari, just kill the guy. He spoke in soft tones. Temari grimaced, not a fan of breaking orders, but seeing no other option. As the pair prepared to attack, their brother's voice, deeper than normal, spoke up. Temari, Kankuro, move. I am ready. Temari and Kankuro looked over their shoulder to their brother, the dark rings around his eyes far deeper. His light green eyes now yellow. The older brother and sister shared a glance, nodded at each other, and ran past Gaara. Are you ready to fall? Sasuke asked arrogantly. Gaara smiled back evilly. A massive sand construct started to form under him, slowly raising him upwards. Soon Sasuke stood face to face with Shikaku, the beast's toothy maw mimicking Gaara's grin, who stood on top of the head, his legs buried into the head. Sasuke, for all his bravado, took a step back under the beast's glare. And as Shikaku rose further, he started to realize he was out of his depth, no matter how much he hated it. Sand started to whirl around him, threatening to bury him alive. He dug deeply into the curse mark, his eyes burning by the amount of chakra rushing through him. Using the extra power, he bull rushes his way through the sand, running back out of the hole he made into the warehouse. Turning around, he sees Shikaku's form bursting out of the warehouse, towering more and more above him. Sasuke, since a long time, felt inferior again. I can't beat that thing, he thought panicky. Even during his loss against Haku he felt he could win, he could sense the power of the tailed beast and it towered mightily above him. Involuntarily, he remembers his brother doing the same, before using his eyes to make Sasuke see the entire clan slaughtered. Panic set in further at those memories, and Sasuke turned around, running away as fast as he could. Gaara, from his rising vantage point, saw Sasuke run away. He launched several attacks, but the Uchiha managed to dodge despite his panicked flight. Sure that his siblings are safe, he starts to lumber to the industry districts, intent to complete the mission Kushina had given him. He would not admit it out loud, but he respected that woman for her strength, and showing him the path to obtain the same. He did not want to fail her. Pakken sniffed the ground, Kiba and Akamaru following his example. They split up here, Pakken spoke gruffly. Let's follow Sasuke-kun, Naruto will be fine, Sakura spoke instantly, without thinking about it. Pakken hesitated. Kiba spoke up, I agree, the low. Naruto will be fine. I hope he gets himself killed. Kiba thought. Pakken nodded his assent, and quickly tracked the tomato scent. The group suddenly saw Sasuke burst out of a hole in the wall. Soon after, a massive sandy head emerged from the building he fled. Kiba, Akamaru and Pakken looked agape at the rising form. Sasuke near its feet. Sakura froze in fear, unable to comprehend the power. Suddenly, Sasuke dashed away from both the beast and the group. They saw multiple sand projectiles bombard the area Sasuke fled to. Shaking himself out of stupor, and the gigantic raccoon dog started to march towards them, Pakken spoke up. "We need to go. It's going to crush us." Matching action with word, he leapt into an alley, making sure he was in cover should the beast decide to bombard them. Kiba blinked, and followed the veteran dog's lead. Akamaru right behind them. They made it to the other side of the alley before realizing they were forgetting someone. Kiba looked back, and only saw his trusty partner. "Damn, Sakura," he exclaimed. Pakken also stopped. "We need to get her." They ran back, the massive Shikaku form, paired with the sounds of destroyed buildings loomed ever closer. They nearly made it to the alley, when they saw a massive shadow move over Sakura. Sakura looked frozen, the power Shikaku emitted freezing her as effectively as Shikamaru's. Shadow Bind Jutsu. She saw the massive foot of the uncaring beast descend towards her, but her muscles ignored her frantic mind. Sasuke-kun. Naruto. Save me, she thought desperately, tears springing forth as she did. Naruto bit back a curse as he saw Shikaku's form emerge from the skyline. He took a wrong turn, and now he had to backtrack quickly, and find one of the non-transformed sand siblings to find out what he had to trash. He knew he had a time limit. Gaara's massive appearance would attract Konoha Nin like flies to syrup. As he closed the massive beast, he suddenly had to dodge a hail of sand projectiles. This time Naruto did curse. "From Bloody Gaara's point of view, I am just another speck of dirt, damn it. Where is the damn fangirl or catboy?" Naruto thought angrily. Luckily, after a large leap to prevent a massive ball of dirt crushing him, he saw Temari's large metal fan glint. She was trailing the Shikaku's massive form from the rear, where most wild sand attacks did not land. "Temari!" Naruto shouted despite the risks. The girl gripped her fan, ready to unleash hell on him, before slightly relaxing when she identified him. "Naruto," she spoke evenly. "So, what do I attack?" Naruto asked impatiently, wanting to get out of the Shikaku destruction zone as soon as he could. "Kushina-sama wants you to target the water aquifer and power station. Any shelters you can hit along the way is secondary. As far Konoha is concerned, you are still a loyal ninja, so try to destroy those targets discreetly. Odo forces are aware you are with us, but only the Suna Jonin know, so retreat if you run into a squad with only Chunin in it." Temari recited. "Suna Jonin will only recognize you if you use Kyuubi's chakra, however," she finished with a frown. Naruto frowned. "Either mom has a lot of faith in me, or the amount of Suna troops in town is less than I thought." Temari interrupted his musings. She opened her fan, hiding her face from view while she leant towards his ear. "The Odo fallback point is northeast. The Suna one northwest. Challenge is, where does the sound prosper? The answer is, where the sand is solid. Red flares will be the general retreat signal." She whispered into his ear. She stopped leaning forward, closing her fan. "Incoming!" Naruto shouted suddenly, and both leapt away, avoiding a Bjo-sized Senbon, which crashed into the building they were standing on. "Any questions?" Temari shouted over the sounds of destruction. Naruto shook his head, and darted off. Gamaken used his shield as a battering ram, stunning one of the heads. He followed up with a large horizontal swing, but the snake's tail rapidly wrapped itself around a building that remained standing, and used it as leverage to pull itself away. The other head clearly in command. The area next to the Great Wall of the Summons where fighting was nearly completely flattened, a few buildings standing more by luck than their inherent sturdiness. Around the edges of their arena, a few remaining Konoha and Suna/Odo forces fought. "Gamaken!" Jiraiya shouted as he jumped into the toad's head. "Done playing with the invading forces down below. I need to find Oroteam, I don't have time to play with his minions. Jiraiya thought with a scowl. Let's get ourselves some fried snake. It will be very ungraceful, but I will do my best, the toad replied, before inflating. The snake, unsure what was going to happen, started to circle the toad. The toad deflated, spitting a stream of oil towards the snake recoiled too late, oil splattered over its skin. With a fireball, Jiraiya ignited the oil, burning the snake which started to screech and trash. His mobile opponent finally pinned down, Gamaken kept spitting burning oil all over the snake. And soon it laid still, the scent of burned flesh wafting off the corpse. Jiraiya grinned victoriously, until a loud crashing noise brought him back to earth. Turning around on the toad's head, he saw the form of the Ichibi arise. He felt Gamaken gaze upon him, answering the unspoken question, "You did well, Ken, go back and tell Bunta to get ready." Jiraiya hopped off and a giant puff of smoke indicated Gamaken's departure. He didn't want to summon Gamabunta here, that would cause the fight to gravitate towards the center of the village, and between Gamaken's fight and the damage Ichibi would unleash. Jiraiya figured Konoha had already taken too much damage. I need to hurry up and get between the Ichibi and the walls. Bunta should be able to lure him out of Konoha. He is going to complain however. Jiraiya mused as he ran into town. He saw a trio of Otonin jump in front of him, palms raised. His mind noted the tubes in their palms. Realizing he was running into a ranged attack, he quickly leapt aside. He was correct, the three nin shouted, decapitating airwaves, in sync, and a massive air blast barreled through the street, gauging a deep trench into the ground. Before Jiraiya could land, two nins leapt from the side of the building, devices on both their forearms. Hari Jizo, Jiraiya shouted, his hair wrapping around him, his spikes bristling outwards. Both men swiped their devices past the outer spikes, cutting grooves on the smooth metal of their devices. Jiraiya felt something shock through his hair, and felt disorientated. Realizing the devices were responsible, he quickly snapped his head from left to right, his extended mane slapping around him as a wild whip, knocking the man away into the building. He tried to capitalize with a Rasengan, but Airwave Launch Squad shot pressured air shots, forcing him away. Jiraiya frowned. These guys are a bit too well informed about me, he thought as he dodged the next set of ranged attacks. I don't have time for these guys, I need to stop Ichibi. 2 hand seals later, he slapped his hands on the ground, Doton, Yomi Numa. He heard curses as one of the airwave men shouted the properties of the attack, but it was too late. Only the said leader managed to get clear, the other 4 men quickly sinking into the marsh Jiraiya had created. Jiraiya wasted no time leaping away towards the rampaging Ichibi. They knew the jutsu, Jiraiya thought with narrowed eyes. Orateam sent a kill squad after me. That is not his style. Kurenai could not believe what her mother figure did. She killed in Konoha Anbu squad, and somehow revived the first 2 Hokages. As they sped away, she couldn't help but shout her name in disbelief. Ah, Kurenaken, Kushina spoke coldly, I am disappointed at you. Despite the situation, she couldn't help but let out a offended, what? Why? I looked after you when your mother died, but you didn't even look at my son without hatred. Kushina spoke. Kurenai frowned, you have a son? Kushina couldn't help but roll her eyes. I was the only Uzumaki in town, Kurenai, and suddenly there is an Uzumaki Naruto. I remember you being smarter than that. But he is the fox that killed my father. Kurenai protested, her calm slipping. Kushina suddenly appeared before her, crossing the distance in a blink of an eye. Kurenai suddenly felt cold metal enter just below her stomach. He is the 3rd container of the Kyubi. Kurenai, Kushina spoke frigidly, I was the 2nd. Kushina wrenched the kunai inside Kurenai to side, tearing her open further, before taking a step back, kicking her towards the arena down below. Kurenai. Another female voice shouted. Kushina turned towards the woman, and a small smile made its way on her face. Hello, Enkaken. Unbeknownst to the two women, Asuma escorting the nobles below, saw Kurenai's falling body, and moved to save her. Anko ignored Kushina, and stormed forward. Sanaijishu, she shouted, launching a pair of snakes from her left sleeve. Kushina calmly raised her right hand, wordlessly launching a group of snakes herself. The animals entwined and dispelled each other. With her other hand, Kushina formed an half-seal. Anko collapsed screaming as her curse mark pulsed. "How?" she croaked. "How?" "I was trained by Orochimaru," Kushina replied calmly. Damn you," Kushina could only shake her head. "Why do you hate Naruto?" she asked instead. "Why?" Kushina formed the half sign again, increasing the pain. "Answer me," she spoke coldly. "The elders want me to bear his children. They think that will result in bloodline babies, that's according to some old myths about the origins of bloodlines," Anko gritted out through the pain. Kushina blinked. "Well. That's stupid," she said plainly. "Naruto doesn't have any new bloodlines aside from mine." Anko looked up confusedly, before connecting the dots. "He is your son?" Kushina nodded. "He is. Sorry about using the prototype against you like that, I had to be sure you did not hate him for a stupid reason." Anko looked even more confused. "Prototype?" she trailed. "Ah. Let me fix that for you." Kushina walked towards the face-down woman, tugging the trench coat further away while gently sending chakra across the skin. "Now if I was a memory-locking seal, where would I hide?" she mumbled to herself, but loud enough for Anko to hear, who froze up. "Memory-locking seal?" she asked herself. "Base of the skull," Kushina suddenly said, her hands glowing with chakra now. "Brace yourself, Ankakan, this will hurt," and with that, she jabbed into the hidden seal. Flashback: why would Sensei attack the lab? Orochimaru asked aloud as the base rumbled again. The traps Orochimaru placed around to halt invaders triggering. "It does not matter, we need to go, Anko," he ordered. The young girl nodded. "Hi Sensei." The pair ran towards one of the hidden exits, Orochimaru as always, making sure he had an escape strategy no matter the situation. They were too slow however, and a group of ANBU appeared behind them. "He is here," one of them shouted loudly. Anko stopped and turned around, activating her seal. Black markings started to spread around her body, increasing her power. "Anko, no." Orochimaru shouted, "The prototype is not ready yet." Anko turned her head, smiled back. "Orochimaru, I trust your work, Sensei, go." She thought she saw a quick display of emotions on the usually stern face. "Very well," he said, before turning around and leaving. Anko shot forward, surprising the ANBU, knocking the first one away with surprise. She fought like a cornered lion. But the sudden appearance of the third Hokage put a stop to it, and with a single swipe of his staff knocked the girl out. From there she had vague memories about interrogation, mind invasions, and finally the decision to alter and seal her memories. Then she remembered the subsequent lies she was told, how she was abandoned, how the unfinished prototype on her neck was going to kill her, and so on. Flashback ends. Despite the pain of the sudden release of the seal, she growled out, "We did those experiments on Hirozen's order." "Why?" She shook her head. "I am going to kill him," she stated firmly. "Sorry Ankakan, but he is mine if Shinkiruken doesn't get him," Anko growled. "But you can kill those two elders who wanted you to be a baby factory." Kushina continued with a bloodthirsty smile. "One," Anko returned. "They'll do." Without further ado, she charged off. Kushina was pleased with herself, although she held no warm emotions for the snake that was her teacher. Anko was as much betrayed as she was, and deserved the same release. Happiness faded however as she realized she spent too much time on the rooftop. Shinkiro and Hiruzen were clashing within the barrier. She quickly leapt down towards the stands Danzo was seated, her most important objective, next to the retrieval of Naruto. The fights around the arena were dying down by the lack of living participants, but she absent-mindedly killed a leaf chunin who tried to attack her as she walked to the seat Danzo sat. Summoning 2 snakes, she ordered, "Find me the one stinking of age, bandages and wood." Tongues flicked around the seats. "We got a scent, mistress," one snake hissed. "Good, lead me to him," she demanded. Naruto peeked around the corner. The Konoha Aquifer was a large reinforced structure. Great water storage tanks on top of the building. Naruto frowned. It was clear the place was being used as a staging point. "I should not be surprised, it is an important structure." Doubt began to set in. Does that woman really think I can destroy this alone? I can't turn huge like Gaara does. I just need to trust Kyuubi's power. He frowned further. I am trusting myself to the fox a lot lately. Shaking off his thoughts, he walked up into the entrance. The squad of ninja frowned. He raised his hands in surrender. The group quickly exchanged glances, before one of them wearily made his way towards him, putting a hand on his shoulder and sending a pulse of chakra through Naruto, confirming he was not hinged. The man scowled. "Shouldn't you be fighting your fellow demon over there?" he said snidely, waving roughly where Shikaku was trashing the village. "I will," Naruto replied calmly, "as soon as the rest of the squad is here." "Rest of the squad?" the man asked, dubious. Naruto rolled his eyes, mimicking expression. "To hunt demons, you make demons," he replied cryptically, brushing past the men into the building. Inside the halls were more Konoha ninja, some wounded, some regrouping and rearming. Naruto walked all past into the pump area. He saw no noticeable weak spots, and there were a few ninja around. He walked through an emergency exit, emerging outside to a tiny courtyard. Quickly glancing around, he realized he had cut straight through the building. Scanning the area, he saw noon. He gulped. "It is now or never." Naruto started to pull Kyuubi's chakra. "Is it time?" the beast demanded impatiently. He might not like Naruto, but he disliked Konoha a whole lot more. The idea of aiding in its destruction, even indirectly, made it quite a happy fox. "Yes, it is." Power exploded from Naruto, a red cloak of chakra quickly wrapping around him. One tail sprouted from his back, long, pointy rabbit red chakra ears formed on Naruto's head, his whiskers marks on his face thickened, canines formed in his mouth. A second tail joined the first, more power came into the ear. Naruto started to form hand seals, slowly and deliberately. A shout of "traitor" did not stop him. The last hand seal, formed, wind compressing into a sphere in front of him, tainted slightly red. The third tail sprouted. Something bounced off his chakra cloak. Futon, de Tapa. Naruto's lack of control over the jutsu, further compounded by supercharging it with Kyuubi's chakra, meant that instead of a controlled powerful gust, it exploded barely controlled into the building. The overpressure slamming through the thick walls, the wind and the debris destroying the machinery inside. The fighting men and women inside crushed by debris or pressure alike. Vital supporting walls gone, the massive water tanks on top of the buildings crashed down. Water washing away or drowning the survivors. Naruto backpedaled away from the destruction, aghast by what he just had done. He suddenly felt Kyuubi's chakra claw slash at something. He turned around. Looking straight into the impassive face of Ibiki, but his anger and disgust radiated off him. His eyes promised untold tales of pain. Naruto fought to control his bowel movement. Kushina followed her snake, ignoring the fights around her. She frowned. She realized she was heading towards the Hokage Tower, a major assembly point for Konoha's forces. If Danzo made it there, Kushina would be forced to fall back and let the man live. "Damn it, old one-eyes bastard, you are not getting away, Databane," she thought furiously, memories off that bubbling to the surface. Kushina crushed them down, and in the distance, saw a bandaged man fiddling with golden bracers. Ignorant of the few civilians milling around the area, Kushina launched a barrage of chains from her back. The chains arced forward, and slammed into the ground in front of Danzo, impact points going up in blaze, forming a blazing barrier. Danzo turned around, and from the shadows, two people with black and white masks shot forward to Kushina, drawing tantos as they approached. Kushina reached for the seal on the back of her dress, revealing the kusanagi. She made a one-handed horizontal swipe, extending the blade as the swipe went. One of the root members attempted the block, but the kusanagi cut through his tanto, and bit into the men. The other root used the time it took the kusanagi to cut through his companion to duck under the attack, and swiped at Kushina. Kushina had raised her other palm, and formed spike-less chains, who formed a round shield in front of her. The tanto clanged against the chains. She willed the chains forward, wrapping around the sword, the man, and then throttled him. Stepping over the chalking man, hand now pointed backwards to slowly kill him, Kushina extended her sword and slashed at Danzo's right hand, who was trying to free the last golden brace, shallowly cutting into the bandaged left arm as she cut the brace apart. Era, are you sure you want to show your stolen arm to Konoha Danzo? She asked. The man glanced around for an escape route. Before he could move, Kushina launched more chains from her back, forming a large cocoon around the pair, chains ripping through the buildings. On Kushina's arm an alert seal burned. Shinkiro is in trouble, her plans to torment Danzo cut short. I don't have time to play with you, she said as she shot forward, chains still attached to her back. Danzo's lone eye widened, before the blade bit into his heart. He toppled backwards, dead. Kushina released her chains, uncaring she set a neighborhood ablaze, and rushed back the arena. She never noticed the subtle shift in reality. Ibiki was rushing to the Aquifer building. Shortly after Jiraiya and his summons started to clash. He captured Asuna Chunin. A short, extremely painful torture session later, Ibiki managed to figure out most targets. For an experienced TNI expert, it was the usual rote, which infiltrators usually aimed for: clan heads, division heads, supply storages, clan secrets etc. But one, in Ibiki's opinion, major weaknesses was never targeted. The water supply, vital for both shinobi and civilian, was not target according to the Chunin. Konoha only had two sources that could truly provide all its needs. The nearby Naka River flowing through the Uchiha lands, and the aquifer inside the city. That worried Ibiki, and the only conclusion he could arrive to is that the enemy had a high-ranked infiltrator poisoned the supply somehow. He approached the building from the back. Leaping on top of a building, he saw a familiar blonde looking contemplatively at the structure. Ibiki glanced towards the Ichibi rampaging to his left. Why isn't he fighting that? He couldn't help but ask himself. Suddenly red chakra burst from Naruto. A tail formed, the boy started to form hand signs. Why would he? Friends with Kabuto. A proof of loyalty. Traitor. Ibiki roared, throwing a kunai with lightning quickness, only for it to be blocked by the chakra cloak. Ibiki leapt forward, another kunai in hand. The boy unleashed the jutsu he was forming, and a devastating wind tore into the building, collapsing it on itself. Smoke, water vapor and debris clattered away as the boy retreated from the building. Rookie Ibiki, though dismissively, aiming for a knockout strike, so he could torture the boy later for the crime he committed. A huge red claw slashed at his face, appearing suddenly out of the back of the boy. The boy whirled to face him. And with some satisfaction Ibiki noticed he struck some fear in the boy. Ibiki rushed through some hand seals, and slapped his palms on the ground. Kuchios, Ian Maiden, Ibiki shouted as a gigantic white cat statue arose from the ground. The thing split open in the middle. Right paw raised in the air, red ears pointing to the sky. The cubified boy snapped out of his stupor as the statue started to close on him, the pikes threatening to impale him. Red tails and claws lashed out, ripping through the spikes, tearing into the walls of the statue. Naruto soon busted through the side as the thing started to sink into the ground. Chains shot from the boy's back, arcing over the boy. They bombarded the area around Ibiki, who used a kunai to block the ones threatening to impale him. But more homed in on his position, driving him back. Ibiki cursed as he was forced to block the next chain with his forearm, gauging a deep wound in it. An idly thought formed in the back of his head, that will be another scar. He dived to the left, avoiding a sudden claw formed out of chakra as Naruto shot forward. He was then forced to roll on his side to avoid impalement by entail. He decided retreat would be most prudent. He had no guarantee any of his other attacks could pierce the cloak, and with all the extra limbs Naruto could form without looking at him meant his superior speed and strength were successfully negated. His capturing methods were inadequate to deal with the extra limbs. Pushing himself to his feet, leaping away before Naruto could properly close the distance again, he swore he would get the boy back as he flickered away. Just you wait, you successfully fooled me boy, but I will my private time with you in an interrogation room. Anko stepped into the nearest shelter from the arena, suspecting the elder council would have made their way inside. She was right, and she saw the pair conversing with an hapless genin, trying to find out what was happening. Honorable Elder Council, Anko said, drawing their attention while she did her best not to choke on the title. Anko, Hamura replied, what is happening outside, she demanded. The battle goes well, Anko lied smoothly, however the enemy left an seal of unknown design. I am ordered to gather all the seal experts I can, the elderly pair nodded their understanding. Very well, lead the way, Anko soon led them outside, and quickly into an empty the building. She waved to the door of an empty room, the seal is inside here, she lied. The pair soon entered, where is the seal then Koharu, managed to ask, before the pair were suddenly enveloped by snakes. Anko, what is the meaning of this? Hamura demanded. You too, Anko said, a bloodthirsty grin making its way on her face. Are going to answer some question I have. You see, a nice lady removed this seal the two of you left on my neck. The elders blanched at the implications. Damn it, Koharu cursed, I knew keeping the snake's whore to keep the contract was, she was interrupted by a kunai slashing her cheek. Now that was some interesting information, but I have more questions. The elderly pair gulped. Kakashi cursed as Asuna Jonin proved to be an actual challenge. After fighting clear through the arena, turning it into no man's land. Kakashi, Guy and some Chunin were suddenly beset by a wave of Suna troops. During the hectic street-to-street fighting, he lost the energetic Guy, who probably spotted a strong opponent to test his mettle against. He was further annoyed he did not know how his students were doing. He saw the transformed Ichibi, its sandy body informing Kakashi who exactly the container was. Since there was no Kyuubi trashing around to defend its turf, Kakashi presumed the cursed boy died before he could be useful. Ducking under a flying rock spike, Kakashi returned fire with a fireball. Since the Ichibi was rampaging around, that either meant Sasuke succeeded killing Gaara, setting free the beast, or the boy had control over his monster. Still, it meant his star student was at ground zero, and Kakashi knew Sasuke was not quite ready yet to deal with a full-blown Bujou. He hoped the boy survived unharmed. Sakura never crossed his mind. Iruka frowned as the barrier he erected with several other barrier specialists shuddered with the impact of another long-range sand projectile. The enormous Ichibi was still focused on burying the industrial sector, but from time to time and started throwing large sand projectiles far and wide into the city. As far Iruka could tell, there were no specific targets, but the Hokage office with the academy attached to it presented a large target. Proud ninja of Konoha were assembling below, the Ino/Shika/Cho trio arrived earlier, taking command. They had cleverly outmaneuvered several kill teams who seemed to be hunting them. The special Jonin turned Chunin instructor for a certain Jinchuriki to help the boy form bonds for the village couldn't help but worry for the students in his class. He knew some of them, like Sasuke and Shino would be fine. He hoped the instructors would be able to protect the others. He wouldn't say it out loud, but he was worried for Naruto, despite declaring to be his friend, he knew he did not pursue the friendship properly. But he honestly did not know how to get closer to the boy. Thanks to his treatment by the village, every word an adult said to him was heard with weariness. Irika vowed to himself he would organize a get-together for his graduated class. The kids would need to share their experiences with each other to process the horrible thing that was war better. Asuma was carrying Kurenai bridal style towards the hospital. A couple of fellow Chunin and Jonin with various injuries right behind him. He managed to stop the bleeding, but she was very pale, her breath shallow. "Come on Kyurchin, don't die on me." As they approached the hospital, they saw Oto and Konoha Nin dueling around the structure, but it was clear the invaders already made it inside. As the wounded troop approached, the hospital burst into flames. Their objective complete, the Oto Nin started a fighting retreat. Konoha allowing them to in favor of attempting to salvage as much as they could. The surviving medical personnel quickly commandeered a nearby store and started a triage. To Asuma's dismay, that meant he had to put Kurenai down on the second floor, and hope she could pull through on her own. Her wound meaning she was in no state to fight again anytime soon. As Asuma exited the provisional hospital, a large sand projectile crashed nearby, destroying a couple of buildings, deepening his worry for the woman he started to love. Jiraiya breathed an oath as he reached the edges of the industrial district, between fighting the invaders at the gate and toying around with the kill team. Ichibi had plenty of time to trash the area, turning it into a mini desert thanks to all the sand the beast had thrown around. Jiraiya wasn't sure if he should be happy by the lack of Konoha ninja, either alive or dead. It either meant they were smart enough to stay away from the giant beast, too afraid to fight beast, or worse, they did fight the beast and are now all buried beneath the sand. Doesn't matter, I can deal with it now, Jiraiya thought confidently as he formed the hand signs for summoning. Kuchiyos no Jutsu. In an enormous puff of smoke, a large red toad, slightly smaller than the Ichibi appeared. The toad had scar over the left eye, dark red markings over its body. A pipe was in its mouth, slowly puffing out smoke. It held a sheathed tanto in its right paw. Jiraiya, Gamabunta booms to Jiraiya on his head, "Why are you involving me into your dangerous fights? No time for joking, Bunta, that thing is thrashing Konoha." Jiraiya replied, stern look on his face. Gamabunta taking in his surroundings, grimly drew his tanto. Ichibi, hearing the arrival, turned towards the pair, a big grin making its way on the toothy jaw. Gaara, upon Shikaku's head, smiled bloodthirstily at the giant toad. He was getting bored of stomping buildings and only a few ninja dared to challenge him. He easily swept them aside, burying them under the loads of sand under his command. Thanks to the seal, Shikaku did not fight him every step of the way. At the same time, he was hardly as quick and agile as the beast could be. Gaara, getting impatient as the toad conversed with the man on its head, inflated Shikaku's belly, drawing in enormous amounts of air. Futon, Renkuden, he bellowed as he commanded the left arm to pound the inflated belly hard. A massive shot of air roared out from Shikaku's mouth towards the toad, who leapt high into the air in response. Shikaku pounded its belly twice again, fully deflating it. In response, two more shots of air flew forward. The first one went wide, underestimating the toad's speed. The second was countered by a large water bullet shot from the toad's mouth. The attacks negated each other, sending a spray water wide over the battlefield and beyond. Gamabunta landed with earth-shaking pound, causing Gaara to momentarily worry about his siblings, before reassuring himself they should be far away. The toad shot to the left, and with several low, rapid jumps was at his flank. Gaara tried to face the toad again, but Shikaku's laborious form hindered him. He is going to attack the rear, Gaara thought, lashing out with the long spiky tail. The toad checked its advance, allowing the tail to slam into the ground in front of it. With a quick vertical swipe, Gamabunta seemingly cut off the tail, but as it rose to the sky, it reformed, blue markings and all. The cut-off part collapsed into normal-looking sand. With a grunt of annoyance, the toad leapt under the recovered tail, dodging its attempt to spear it. Now fully behind the massive Bju, Gamabunta cheeks inflated, and started to spit a stream of oil towards the head of Ichibi. Jiraiya on top of Gamabunta's head ignited the flames. Gaara, looking over his shoulder, saw the burning oil heading for him, and managed to put the thick tail between him and the oil. The steam of oil splattered against the tail, burning and turning the sand of the outer parts to glass. Gamabunta shuffled to the side, trying to spit around the tail, but Gaara managed to block most of it, some splatters making its way on Shikaku's back. The moment the stream of inflamed oil stopped, Gaara tried to squash the pair with a vertical swipe of his tail, but once again the agile toad evaded. And once again circled the lumbering Shikaku. No longer attacking, trying to keep its movement stable for its summoner on the toad's head, who was furiously working on top of it. Gaara frowned, the agile toad so far evading all his attacks. Shikaku was too slow to catch the toad. Using a Bijidama crossed Gaara's mind, but the chances he hit his siblings or allies was present. Unexpectedly, the toad suddenly surged forward, catching Gaara off guard, raising Shikaku's arms in desperate defense like a boxer. The toad's tanto buried itself into the sandy forearms. Jiraiya ran over the blade, jumped onto the raised fist, using it as height boost. With a mighty leap Jiraiya landed on top of Shikaku's head and without pause, slapped a piece of paper on Gaara's forehead. Gaara slumped backwards, and the gigantic sand construct started to collapse. Jiraiya leapt back towards the toad, landing near the tip of the still extended sword. The raised sand arms already falling down into piles of sand. Running across the blade, he thanked the toad for its help. Before jumping off, clear of all the falling sand, the toad dispelled in a giant puff of smoke, temporarily blinding Jiraiya from the falling Gaara. Naruto snarled angrily as Ibiki disappeared. Turning back around, he jumped on top of the destroyed aquifer building. Calming himself down lest he loses himself to Kyuubi's boundless rage, he seeks for more things to destroy to complete his mission. Suddenly the ground shook, and hidden from sight by the building still standing, debris flew in the air. A second boom was heard, this time he saw a giant red thing falling down from the sky. A large halo of water was being scattered. The thing landed, and the ground shook. His mind suddenly made the connections. A large summon was fighting Gaara. The only one he knew about was Jiraiya, the toad summoner, one of the Sannin. Naruto stood indecisively. Continue with his destruction mission, or come to the aid of a fellow container. Help Ichibi. Naruto blinked, not expecting advice from the fox. A moment later he decided to follow the advice, and shot forward over the roofs, constantly keeping an eye on the massive form. I don't want to die by an attack that missed, Naruto thought. He was near the new desert's edge as he saw a figure jump towards the head from the fist. Moments later Shikaku's form froze, and started to fall apart. As the sand construct fell to the earth, he saw Gaara's slumped form falling. He dashed forward, braving the sand shooting outward under the pressure. His chakra cloak protecting him. He nearly lost sight of Gaara again. But his leap was well aimed. Midair he felt Kyuubi's chakra recede to his confusion. Do you want to burn Ichibi's container? Then the Kyuubi answers his thoughts, sarcasm strong in the fox's voice. Naruto felt like slapping himself, he was using the same stuff to shred and tear. He couldn't however, as his arms conveniently filled themselves with Gaara's form. The impact sending Naruto in a spin, who landed on his back on the sand of Shikaku's fallen form. Sliding off the sand slope. He put Gaara down and inspected him. He saw a white paper with all kinds of symbols on it. Quickly realizing what laid him low, the same thing happened to him by his mother. He ripped off the paper. Gaara groaned in pain. And looked around with confusion in his eyes. Who are you? He asked. It's me, Naruto. The boy looked, before recognizing him, Kushina's son, he stated decisively. Naruto nodded. You. A man's voice hissed loudly. Why did you remove the seal? He demanded. Naruto turned around, standing protectively in front of Gaara. He saw the tall, white-haired man, red marks over his face. Jiraiya, Naruto thought. Move, idiot. He trailed off as Naruto re-engaged his cloak, one tail sprouting outward. Kyuubi was warning him not to get hit by a piece of paper, lest the fox would chew off something important to his manhood. Naruto? Jiraiya asked. How do you know my name? Naruto demanded. Before Jiraiya could respond, he was forced backwards by a hail of senbon. He then leapt leftwards to avoid getting sliced apart by a wind attack. Gaara! Temari shouted worriedly. Temari, Kankuro. You should be far away. I could have hurt you. Gaara spoke worried. You nearly did, Kankuro responded without thinking, receiving a glare from Temari as Gaara looked down. Naruto, why are you protecting those Sunanin? They are attacking the village. Jiraiya demanded hotly. I would scratch my headband if I could. Jiraiya-sama, Naruto replied cheekily. The man looked agape, surprised by the answer. Using the man's surprised state, Naruto shot forward with the intent to rip him apart. Alone I won't be able to take him, but with the 3 Sannin we should be able to handle him. Naruto thought confidently. Moments later he was slapped aside by Jiraiya's hair, who had recovered. Temari quickly swung her fan, launching a wind attack which Jiraiya countered by raising a wall through the sand. The wind slamming into it. Kankuro helped Gaara to his feet. Can you transform again? He asked worriedly. After a moment, Gaara shook his head. I can't sense Shikaku. He started gingerly moving the sand. I can still use the sand however. He spoke with more confidence. Shikaku? Naruto asked himself. Before he was knocked back by a heavy punch from Jiraiya. His follow-up interrupted by Kankuro's puppet, who tried to impale him with all 4 arms. Jiraiya twirled around the puppet, a blue sphere forming in his hand. Rasengan! Jiraiya shouted as he shoved the sphere into the puppet, grinding the puppet in half before blowing the top and bottom parts far away. He ducked under the sand shuriken Gaara had launched, before mule-kicking Naruto away again. Temari looked for an opening to slice him apart, but they were interrupted when 2 men wearing melody arms jumped in, attacking Jiraiya in a ferocious 2-on-1 taijutsu match. Another 3 men were close behind, the leader facing the young genin. Can the Ichibi container transform? He asked. Gaara shook his head. Then you 4 get away from here, you only get in the way. Temari and Kankuro nodded. Gaara looked reluctant, but obeyed his sister. Naruto wavered for a second, before setting off in a different direction, remembering he still had a power plant to target. Kushina scowled as she cut her way through an ANBU team from behind. Konoha recovered the arena too quickly, I am running out of time. Using the seal again, she dashed through the barrier. Greeted by entired Hiruzen, and a badly battered Shinkiro. Quickly unsealing the Kusanagi, she shot forward, blocking a swipe from Hiruzen's staff. A yelp from the staff informed Kushina it was indeed the transformed Monkey King. Kushina, Hiruzen growled. Why destroy the village your husband protected? Just for personal revenge? He is not my husband, not anymore, Kushina growled back. I became a single mother the moment the bastard decided Konoha needed a Jinchuriki. He made the right choice, every major village has at least one. He pointed vaguely to the direction Shikaku started to fight Gamabunta. The kill squad must have failed, Kushina thought. They are decisive changers of battlefield. Without one, Konoha would fall. Kushina snorted at the lecture. Konoha did fine without one for the past 3 wars, professor. She mocked. She turned slightly towards Shinkiro, handing him the tag. I am skinning this monkey Shinkiro. She spoke coldly. Shinkiro nodded. Be careful, Kushina, he might be old, but he is worthy of his title. I know Shinkiro, thank you for wearing him out. Kushina said, as Shinkiro staggered into the hole in the barrier. She saw Hiruzen eyeing the hole, and decided to dissuade him from trying to run. "Eyes here, Professor," she shouted as she launched a multitude of chains from her back towards Hiruzen, who quickly spun his staff, batting them away, ignoring the flames erupting around him. Hiruzen sked as he saw Kushina's plan. Using the chains he batted away, she was enveloping him. Slightly shrinking his staff, he spun up momentum as more chains shot from Kushina, embedding themselves around him. Minor vibrations under his feet informing him he was nearly completely surrounded. Focusing chakra through the staff, Enma adding his own, he slammed the staff hard into the wall of chains, dispersing several off them. Enma rested upon the chains he couldn't break. Hiruzen slid himself over his staff through the opening he made, before pulling the staff out. He did this just in time. The cocoon collapsed on itself. He whirled around, facing a snarling Kushina trying to impale him on the Kusanagi. He batted the blade to the side, Enma's claws appearing out of the staff, trying to rake Kushina who nimbly bent around the strikes. Hiruzen stomped down on the summoned snake. Kushina dropped during her bending. Both fighters leapt away from each other. Hiruzen tossed his staff up in the air, forming hand seals as he went. Katan, Karyu Enden. A large fire dragon emerged from Hiruzen's mouth and charged towards Kushina, the dragon flanked on either side by flames that arced towards her too. Kushina rapidly made seals of her own as she dropped the Kusanagi. Kuchios, Rashomon. A demonic gate sprung from the roof, raising towards the sky. The fire dragon exploded against it. Behind the gate, Kushina shot chains from both her hands to the bottom of the roof on top of the gate. The unstable roof caused the gate to wobble towards under the impact. Kushina pushed back, and toppled the gate towards Hiruzen, who was just picking up his staff. Running up the gate as it toppled forwards, Kushina leapt into the air, aiming her arms at Hiruzen. Mandara no Jin. A veritable horde of snakes shot out of her sleeves and mouth towards Hiruzen, who planted his staff upright into the roof, forming hand seals as quick as he could. Doton, Doriahiki, he shouted as he slapped the palms of his hand into the roof. An earthen wall shot up, blocking his view from Kushina and the snakes she was spitting out. Knowing he only stopped the initial charge, he rapidly retreated away from the wall. Soon enough, snakes were appearing on the top and the sides, opening the mouths, blades popping out. Once again he planted his staff into the roof, quickly forming another set of hand seals. Katan, Gokakya no Jutsu, he shouted as he belched out a fireball that exploded the earthen wall he made earlier, removing the majority of snakes. He suddenly felt Enma grab onto him and throw him to the side. A split second later an extended Kusanagi impaled the ground he was just standing at. Kushina retracted the blade, but instead of the blade going towards her, she went towards the embedded tip. With a punch she propelled the transformed monkey into the barrier. A short screech of pain was heard, before the staff disappeared in a puff of smoke. Hiruzen struggled to his feet, before he was forced to block a furious kick from Kushina, flipping him through the air. He managed to recover midair and landed on his feet, before sinking to his knees. The fatigue and chakra exhaustion of fighting Shinkiro and Kushina back-to-back could no longer be ignored. Era, feeling your old age Hiruzen, Kushina mocked, sensing her advantage. Hiruzen glared back panting, I might fall today, but Konoha will not, he spoke resolutely. Era, I agree, not today, but it will in the future. Hiruzen shook his head. It won't, my successor will make sure of that. Kushina chuckled. And who will that be? Jiraiya will turn down the job, his research much more important. Are you thinking about Tsunade perhaps? She will easily turn to my side when she learns the truth. Hiruzen's eyes shot wide open. She knows, he thought. Danzo then? Well, he is being quite dead now, his little Mokutan arm useless. Mokutan arm? Hiruzen couldn't help but ask. Era, you didn't know. Your little shadow truly had a mind of its own. Kushina mocked. That little crippled arm of his was revitalized with the Shodame's cells. I was actually the payment for that treatment from Orochimaru. Kushina chuckled. Era, I wonder how often the Shodame's grave was disturbed. First on your orders, then by Danzo for his arm. Later by Kabuto on Orochimaru's orders. Hiruzen looked confused. I don't understand, he croaked. Of course you don't, fool. I admit your battle instincts are as sharp as they used to be, but otherwise you have been just rotting in that office. You did not see my invasion coming, you did not see Naruken switching to his mother's side. You saw nothing. Naruto is loyal to the village, Hiruzen objected weakly. Ha, even a genin, or even a kid could lie to you. He is on speaking term with the little fox inside him. Quite familiar with it. I mean, him. I lugged that fox around half my life and I didn't know the gender of him. Hiruzen's eyes would have grown bigger if they could. This is the end for you, Hiruzen, she shot forward, ducking under his weak counter-punch, landing a devastating uppercut. Her other hand snaked out, grabbing the arm Hiruzen tried to punch her with, pulling him back down. She handily unbalanced him and forced him face first into the ground. Goodbye, she spoke coldly, before stomping down on his neck. Breaking it with a sickening crunch. Anko left the corpses of the elder council both satisfied and confused. She knew they truly believed children with a Jinchuriki parent magically sprouted bloodlines. Ha, that they could believe that. Kyumo has at least one known Jinchuriki and they hunger for the bloodline limit abilities, yet no new bloodlines appeared in Kyumo. But also confused, Hiruzen truly did not order Sensei to execute the Mokuton experiments. Yet the paperwork was correct as far I could remember, Sensei wouldn't do it otherwise. Overall, however, she got to torture two people she didn't like, so Anko was mostly happy. Now normally this is the part one get dango, the girl thought. She overlooked the village, some places burning, other places completely trashed. One district turned into a mini desert. I don't think I'll get any dango here though. That woman knew the flaw of my prototype mark. And she used snakes and said Sensei trained her. Never thought he would take another apprentice. The suddenly saw red signal flares erupt from the arena. That is either an attack or retreat signal, considering they are already inside the city they are leaving. Anko thought. I have no way to prove I am on their side aside from the woman. And I want to find out who ordered Sensei to do those experiments. Anko started leaping towards the Hokage monument. I'll scale the wall near the monument. With our own forces assembling at the Hokage tower, nobody will bother me. Anko leapt away, she would not be seen by anyone alive for several months. Kushina looked at the cooling corpse of Hiruzen, she felt satisfied that she finally had her revenge for his crimes against her clan. She forced herself not to savor the moment, however, she had people depending on her, the longer she tarried, the longer her people and most importantly, her son, would fight. Lower the barrier, she ordered. The Sound 4 instantly dropped the barrier and surrounded her. The arena area was still empty. Jirobo, Tayuya, launched the flares. Kidameru, cut off Hiruzen's arm and store it in a scroll. Sakan, Yukon, how goes the battle as far as you could tell, she snapped, the 5 people shot into action. Kushina frowned upon hearing the twins report. Konoha assembles too quickly, did the assassins on the clan heads fail too, she thought. Nevertheless, the retreat signal was sent. She did not see Shinkiro anywhere, so she presumed he already had left after she started dueling Hiruzen. She hoped he was alright. Flares are up, Kushina-sama, Tayuya reported. Kidameru nodded, arm retrieval quest complete Kushina refrained from rolling her eyes at Kidameru's rather unique way of speaking. She suspect every ninja village needed a weird man with strange manner of speaking. So the more sane shinobi could use him as a measuring stick of going over the edge. At least with Kidameru, her village's weird guy wasn't as loud as Konoha's green beast. The group soon headed towards the destroyed east walls. Resistance was light initially, but they ran into unsuspected opposition. Kushina, a certain usually one-eyed Jonin shouted, Sharingan eye blazing. Kushina stopped, the sound forming a protective layer around her. Era, the biggest disappointment in Konoha. Minato would be disappointed in you. Kushina spoke, her eyebrows knitting in concentration. What do you mean? Kakashi asked confused, halting the hand seals he was forming. Well, you did say you wanted to be a big brother figure for the baby that would be born. Kakashi nodded carefully. Did you know the name of that baby? Kakashi shook his head. Well, let me tell you Kakashi, it's Naruto. What? No. The demon can't be Sensei's son. Kushina shook her head, this again, like I told Kurenai. He is the third container, I was the second. Kakashi's eyes widened further, he strangled out a no in denial. Suddenly, a red, wicked spiked chain erupted from the ground, cutting deeply into Kakashi's torso. He stumbled back as the chain reared away from him. Before it could snap forward, Kakashi substituted with some debris on instinct. The debris were crushed and burned, but Kakashi was alive, retreating immediately, knowing full well he could not win with his new wound. Chains from the feet are so much slower, Kushina mused, wishing she could improve it. Well then, let's go. No use chasing trash. She told the stunned Sound 4. If it wouldn't give him away, Naruto would have groaned in frustration as he saw the destroyed power station. It seemed another squad completed his objective, meaning his run around town, avoiding forces from both sides after running away from Jiraiya was for nothing. He clambered wearily on top of a building, he refrained from using Kyuubi's chakra, as it gave away his location, but between the fight with Neji to now, he did a lot of running around. He was getting tired. And as bonus on top, I don't know what to do until the signal. He started to muse, until he saw the flares appear above the arena. Time to go, he thought almost giddily, it was time to say goodbye to Konoha, and never to return. He spotted a mixed squad of Suna and Oto ninja at the end of the street of the building he was standing on. Remembering that Suna Jonin would only recognize him with his Kyuubi cloak on, he activated it, and leapt towards them. He did expect to hear his name yelped out halfway down the street. Hinata was getting more and more worried. The invasion was ongoing for a while now, thankfully the Hyuga district was spared so far. But she did not see or heard about her sister. She did not worry about her father or Neji, despite his wounds from Naruto, she knew both were strong and would survive the storm. After another failed inquiry about his sister, she could no longer take it. Easily making her way past the branch guards, who stood guard against any possible invaders in case they decided the Hyuga household was the next target, Hinata dashed back towards the arena. Halfway there, in the abandoned market district, she suddenly saw an organized retreat Sound and Suna ninja. Red flares glared balefully in the sky. A dreadful chakra was close on their heels. Pressing herself into a hiding spot, she silently activated her bloodline. She saw the last of the retreating squads already was past her, and the red form of chakra was close behind. She focused closer on this thing, her curiosity momentarily overwhelmed her confusion and worry. The last thing she expected was seeing Naruto's whiskered face behind the cloak of chakra. Without meaning to, she yelped a surprised Naruto-kun. His head instantly snapped towards her hiding location, and she shyly stepped out. She realized he was probably using the fox's power. But he seemed to be in control. Naruto-kun, she asked shyly. The smile she was so familiar with made its way on his face, although toothier thanks to the elongated canines he seemed to sport now, enhancing his feral look. Hinata, she spoke happily. This is our chance to get away from here. Away fr. From here, she stuttered in surprise. Yeah, my mom is alive and is the Otokich. Naruto said, stepping towards her to pick her up. Although Hinata was certainly shy, she was far from stupid, and quickly connected the dots. She shook her head violently, I can't. Naruto blinked in surprise, he was certain Hinata was as unhappy as she could be at home. Why not? He asked almost despairingly, unable to take the only person he cared about in Konoha with him. My sister, I won't leave my sister with them, she spoke with conviction. I promised to my mother I would look after her. Naruto was surprised by the firmness in her voice. He smiled, all right Hinata, I will come back for you and your sister, I promise. And, I am sorry. Hinata looked puzzled at the apology, and then darkness overtook her. Knocked out by Naruto. Naruto quickly made a clone, putting the knocked-out girl back in her hiding spot. He heard ninja approaching, and did not want to cast the girl in a suspicious light. The short conversation caused him to lose sight of the squad he was following. Well, I know where we are regrouping. Naruto dashed towards the walls. Intent to make it out of Konoha, he had a promise to keep now. Shinjiro left behind the barrier as soon as he exited it. He was worried about his youngest, the duel between the Toad and the Tanuki clearly visible. He wanted to rush over and defend his boy, but was painfully aware that in his state, he would be a liability. His worries doubled when Shikaku's form collapsed. He considered once again changing course, but it would be too late even if he left now. He could only pray the siblings could reach each other one time, and either fight off or escape their adversary. He successfully rejoined his troops who were regrouping. It seemed like they performed better than expected, and were preparing to meet Konoha's counterattack. Shinjiro could only shake his head at their optimism. He and Kushina both knew destroying Konoha in one go would not work. By now all the close-by outposts would be notified of the attack on Konoha. If they did not leave soon, they would be crushed between the forces closing in to assist Konoha, and the concentrated, organized force gathered around the Hokage Tower and other gathering points that had not been destroyed. They had to move soon, cutting through the approaching group before the approaching troop could consolidate into a credible harassment force, and set a pace high enough to escape the troops in Konoha, although Kushina had several distraction plans set up. If it wasn't for Kushina's superior spy network inside the village, Shinjiro was not sure if they even would have managed sneaking so many troops so close to Konoha. He was very glad the gamble he took allying with the woman paid off. Although he had plans to shove off the blame to Oto should everything gone wrong, Suna would have suffered. The flares crossed the skies, and on his word, most of Suna's troops retreated in good order. Nara Shikaku, Jonin commander of Konoha, muttered at troublesome as he closed his eyes, and started processing the information he had. Communication was disrupted regularly, and the enemy had an uncanny amount of knowledge about the inner workings of Konoha's emergency siege plan. Many of the secondary fallback points were annihilated. Both the summon fight at the east wall, and the massive destruction by Ichibi further battered the otherwise robust plan. The main force managed to assemble at the Hokage Tower. I furthermore have troops at 3 secondary points, all close to Hokage Tower. I have reports of the Hyuga and Aburame clan digging in at their own compounds. Those troops won't move unless their clan head or I order them to. My enemies are mostly concentrating themselves in the east. They most likely will retreat given their knowledge of our plans. If they do attack, it means a fourth player would enter the game. Troublesome. Most assassination squads are eliminated or they retreated. Their targets seem to be clan heads and division heads. That means a squad had multiple targets, or the enemy dedicated over 50 ninja to take out Konoha's leadership. Then there are the reports of the first Hokage destroying the Akimichi district, while the second Hokage is flooding the Nara forest. I hope my wife got away on time. The Nara's eyes shot open, and he started out snapping orders. In the distance he saw red flares slowly dropping. A signal. As the Konoha ninja started their counterattack, buildings near the Hokage Tower randomly started exploding. More proof they have infiltrated us very well, the Nara thought dourly. Fear tactic, but I need to be careful. He sent a general warning to the scouts to double-check for booby traps. Konoha ninja advanced slowly into their own village. I hope Hokagesama is fine, he has been isolated with just his ANBU detail and the reinforcements I sent earlier for far too long. They would find his abused body on top of the arena roof, a half-broken earthen wall, a fallen demonic gate, numerous scorch marks and gauged roofing telling a story of a glorious last stand, if their leader had not died with an expression being a mix of fear and confusion. Jiraiya scowled as he gazed over the 5 dead bodies of the kill squad that stopped him from smacking sense into his godson and properly lock up the Ichibi container. Why did Naruto turn against Konoha, went through his thoughts. He didn't care for the boy, but his disloyalty was an insult to his student Minato, must be the snake's twisted mind games he concluded. Unaware of the truth behind the events that happened the day. In the distance he heard buildings exploding, and he shot towards them the sounds. Danzo entered the underground base closest to the place he died. He quickly reapplied the seal bracings before his modified arm drained him dry of chakra. It was luck that allowed me to survive. If she did not cut the last brace, I would not have been able to use the Izanagi. The secret of my Sharingans is thankfully still safe. Danzo briefly toyed with the idea of killing Uchiha Sasuke to replace his lost eye. He still has a chance to form a Mangekyo Sharingan, 9 eyes will do for now. This invasion changes things, Danzo mused to himself. Hiruzen underestimated Orochimaru, although I did not expect he would turn that woman into an apprentice myself. A masked man appeared, kneeling in front of him. Danzo-sama, speak. Sarutobi Hiruzen has fallen. Danzo nodded, suspecting that, he asked, who did the deed? The woman claimed to be Uzumaki Kushina Danzo-sama. Danzo raised an eyebrow, not Orochimaru himself. I see. Continue. The forces of Suna and Oto seem to be retreating before the counterattack organized by Nara Shikaku. Danzo frowned further. Orochimaru had sworn he would destroy Konoha, why isn't he pushing his forces into destruction? Perhaps he is not command then. Danzo calmly analyzed the situation as more reports came in. The rate of medical data was worrying before the hospital was set ablaze, so they did not know the actual loss. In the end, Danzo came to a decision. He spoke to himself softly, toast in hand. Well Hiruzen, it seems like you will be no longer ahead of me. Naruto was dashing through the forest, hopping from tree to the tree, his heading was northeast, like instructed. I should have asked how far away. Naruto complained in his head, audibly complaining about fangirls and their sense of direction and distance. Kyuubi had cut off his supply of power, citing his body was reaching its limit. He couldn't help but to agree, his entire body felt like it suffered a bad sunburn. He came to a sudden stop on instinct. Moments later, a squad of ninja appeared in front of him. He gazed at the headbands, and sound note was on them. He sighed in relief. Uzumaki Naruto, the female leader asked firmly. He nodded. Where does the sound prosper? Naruto's mind shot back to the events earlier today, remembering his conversation with Temari before. Before I killed a lot of people. He blanched at the realization, so caught up moment to moment he forgot. Where the sand is solid, he managed to croak out. The female, with light blue hair, long strands of hair framing her face, jumped over, and like the security at the aquifer, touched his shoulder and pulsed chakra. It's really him, she stated. Are you alright, brat? She asked with a tone of worry. Naruto nodded shakily, but it was clear she didn't buy it. She looked at him like she was trying to figure out a puzzle, and she suddenly had a solution. First time you killed people, and now you are remembering it, she half asked, half stated. Naruto nodded again. She patted his shoulder, don't think about it too much, it's either you or them. She spoke up louder now, I'll bring him to Kushina-sama. Keep patrolling, follow me, she said. Naruto followed her quickly, trying to push away the fact he had killed other people. I can't believe this, I was thinking about making Neji my first kill. Revenge truly twists a person. They quickly made it up an large hill. Near the top there were more signs of an army, temporary tents to rest, field hospitals and subdued revelry. Kushina-sama, the woman called out. Naruto spotted his mother turn around. Guren, she spoke pleasantly, her smile widening as she saw Naruto, Naruken. Naruto looked embarrassed at the childish name, but allowed himself to be hugged by the woman. Where is Kabuto-kun? Kushina asked. Kabuto stepped out of the shadows. I am here, Kushina-sama, he replied. Kushina smiled again. Thank you for looking after Naruken, Kabuto-kun. It was of no trouble, Kushina-sama, Kabuto bowed, causing Kushina to miss the smirk on his face. He did not watch Naruto at all. With an invasion happening gave him the perfect chance to raid the hospital and other locations. So he had much more important things to do than watch some blonde brat running around and keep him safe. Guren watched Kabuto with a frown. She never trusted the man and had not sensed him during her encounter with Naruto. His loyalty always seemed a bit too fluid for her taste. But she did not speak up, not wishing to make a scene. Kushina turned to one of her commanders. How much longer until the deadline? Kushina asked. A bit over an hour, Kushina-sama, the man replied dutifully. Kushina nodded. Kabuto-kun, go to the field hospitals and make sure they are ready to move the wounded. Guren-chan, get Karen-chan to prepare the energy transfer seal. We will be making the crystal wall the moment we are ready to leave. Take Naruken with you. Karen is looking forward to see her brother. Brother? Naruto echoed. I have a sister, he asked a moment later. Kushina chuckled. 2 sisters, both adoptive, but they're both of Uzumaki blood. That is what counts. Naruto was silent, unsure what to say. Kushina chuckled again and gave him a quick hug. Go with Guren now, Naruken. The pair soon found Karen, a red-headed girl slightly older than Naruto. Her crimson eyes lit up with recognition as she saw the pair. She stopped attending the patient she was working on and ran over to the pair. So you must be my brother Naruto, she spoke enthusiastically as she gave him a hug. What is with all the hugging? Naruto thought as he tried not to stiffen like a board. A bit cold chakra on the outside, but warm beneath. Wow. The Nine-Tails chakra is nasty, she spoke to herself, getting a puzzled look from Naruto, before he stiffened up. You can sense the fox, he couldn't help but ask. She nodded. I am from the Kagura branch. Naruto made the connection. The Kagura clan was absorbed during the clan war era into the Uzumaki clan, after a long time of close connections and marriages. Their ability to sense chakra varied heavily, but as far Naruto could tell, it was strong in Karen. Guren smiled warmly at the scene. Can't wait to introduce him to Yuki, he seems like a good kid. You two can get a room later, she teased, warming up to Naruto's easy acceptance of his new family. Both shot an offended look at her. Karen, Kushina-sama needs you to set up the energy transfer array. Karen nodded, grabbed Naruto's wrist and pulled him along. Alright, let's go, she spoke cheerfully. Soon they stood on a slightly elevated bump on the hill, giving Naruto a good look at the distantly burning Konoha. Black smoke wafting lazily in the air. He could see a yellow patch where Gaara had rampaged. I hope he also got away safely. Naruto hoped for his fellow container, feeling a distant kinship with the boy. So Naruto, mind helping me with this seal? Karen asked as she was drawing symbols into the ground. Naruto shook his head. I don't know anything about seals. He spoke regretfully, wanting to dive into the subject the moment he knew it was something his clan was good at. You don't? Karen asked curiously. Seeing Naruto's disappointed look, she felt like kicking herself, forgetting that despite her harsh upbringing under Orochimaru before Kushina took over, she did learn all kinds of things, something Naruto was denied at every corner. Wanting to change subject upon seeing Karen's conflicted expressions, can you tell me about my other sister? He asked. Karen smiled. Ah. Tayuya. She is, you. Rough around the edges, but beneath that unpleasant language of hers, she does care deeply. Despite refusing to call Mom, Mom. She is the first to help if Kushina needs something. Karen finished with a smile. I am sure she'll warm up to you in no time if you look past the foul nickname she'll give you. Probably, she said with a nervous chuckle. Naruto could not help but wonder what kind of sister this Taiyuya would be from Karen's description. Soon a fallback point Shinkiro walked into the field hospital as soon he heard his children had arrived. To his happiness, he saw that all three of them were all right, although Gaara's shoulder was bandaged from Sasuke's Chidori. The bandages were clean, so that meant they were fresh. A smile fought its way on his face. You are all alright, I was worried when I saw the toad summon. Temari smiled back, Kankuro lips twitched upward. And Gaara is still as distant and weary as ever. But I deserve that, I suppose. Kushina was right, I made a terrible mistake, Shinkiro mused to himself once again. Temari responded, if it was not for Naruto, Gaara could have been hurt. I knew from Kushina-sama's display seals are powerful, but to force Shikaku's power back into Gaara with a small piece of paper. Shinkiro raised an eyebrow. Naruto came to your aid? It seems I need to thank Kushina twice now. Temari nodded, he caught Gaara as he fell. And then bought us the time for an Oto kill team to show up. They send us away. Kankuro lost his puppet fighting Jiraiya. Shinkiro sighed in relief. It's glad to see you are all okay. His voice turned stern. We are moving out soon, help where you can and then find Baki, I saw him earlier. Shinkiro walked away again as the siblings exchanged glances. Before getting up and following their father's instructions. Outside, Shinkiro encouraged his troops to move out. The distraction Kushina promised will happen soon if I am not mistaken. Kushina walked out of the tree line, smiling as Karen and Naruto chatted about light subjects. Seems like those two bonded easily. As she came closer, neither teenager noticing her, one busy on her work, the other turned away from her talking to his sister. Kinda jealous I don't have red hair like you or mom. I'd think I'd like better with it. Kushina smiled, I can help with that. Well, that shouldn't be that hard, Naruken. Naruto whirled around and blinked. Hi mom, he said after a moment of surprised silence. You can, he said after progressing her statement. Compared to giving people inbuilt weaponry, red hair is easy, Kushina spoke with confidence. Karen-chan, are you done? Yes mom, Karen responded dutifully. She turned to her commanders, are all the troops ready? They nodded. Good, join them and move out as soon the wall appears. Hi Kushina-sama, they intoned. Before leaving in puffs of smoke or leaves. Naruken, could you please sit in that circle there? Kushina asked, as she took up position on her own. The seal on the ground looking like a fan. With one circle at the base, one at each end and the last one on the top. Kushina sat in the center one, while Guren took position at the base. Karen took the remaining circle. Now channel chakra into the seal, try to keep it as controlled as you can. Guren, do it, she commanded. With extra chakra flowing into her, Guren started a string of hand seals, before clapping her palms on the ground. Shoten, Senri no Chojo. Ahead of her, a crystal spire started to rise, far above the trees. On each side more spires started to grow. Crystal growths spurted between the two spires, connecting them into a wall. Soon, a massive, sparkling crystal wall, sharp spines bristling in all directions, was erected between the direction of Konoha and Oto's forces. Kushina stood up again, patting the panting Guren on her back. Well done Guren. She turned towards Karen who laid down, also trying to gain her breath. Are you alright Karen? The girl nodded, turning her head towards Kushina, her expression instantly turned worried. Kushina followed her gaze. They saw Naruto on his back, breathing heavily. Naruto, Kushina shouted worried, nearly leaping to his side. Karen, despite her exhaustion was next to her in a second. Damn it, he is burning up, he overused his chakra, his entire system is stressed. Guren, get Kabuto now. Kushina ordered as she picked up Naruto. Naruto felt his world go black. Shikaku nearly let out a whistle as he saw the crystal wall rise from the forest. His mind however rapidly spun through the reasons why the enemy would do that. Konoha forces had nearly secured their own village. After the initial barrage of explosions, nothing more happened. They had found the dead Hokage, although his missing arm was not found. The reports he heard earlier about the two revived Hokages seemed to be true. Food storages had been crushed under iron-hard thick trees. And parts of the Nara ranch were flooded, the deer drowned, the medical storages destroyed. That means the enemy has the ability to revive the dead, at a high cost, because we did not face an army of revived warriors. Or they have somebody with Mokuton and an high water affinity. Both cases are troublesome. At the least, whoever or whatever is responsible is no longer around. Now the question is, why did they make that wall? Diversion, distraction, to cover their retreat, a large-scale booby trap, some form of ranged attack, and this is the first stage. I need to risk somebody to scout it out. At least Jiraiya is alive, having faced down Abju snapping out orders. Shikaku continued to receive short verbal reports of the damage done. They painted a bleak picture. More casualties came in, including the mutilated corpses of the Elder Council. The next Hokage is going to have his hands full. I am not going to do it, far too troublesome. The next thing Naruto knew was that he was swaying upon a stretcher. The blue sky interrupted time from time by branches of the trees. He groaned as he tried to raise himself, but was soon pushed back down by a hand. He turned his head, and saw his mother's face. She looked both worried and angry. Why did you not say you had overused Kyuubi's chakra? Naruto opened his mouth, stayed silent and closed it again. He thought about it more and concluded, I didn't think about it. Kushina sighed, Naruken, she started to lecture, overusing Kyuubi's chakra can destroy you. When you overstress your chakra network. Kushina lectured on, going into the technical details why death by Kyuubi's chakra is unpleasant. However, somewhere in the back in his mind Naruto could only think, first time I get lectured by mom, and draw a certain happiness from it. At the end of the lecture, Kushina, not noticing her son was not entirely present during it. He was allowed to walk under the hawkish gaze of his mother. Deeming his recovery acceptable, he soon marched with his mother to Oto, his new home. The next few days for Naruto were mostly a whirlwind of traveling with the Oto army. Being hugged by his mother whenever he came within arm's reach and talking with Karen. The retreat itself went flawlessly. The forces from Konoha from a nearby outpost quickly moved to evade the army, not attempting to slow them down. He also met his other sister Tayuya briefly before she had to leave again. Correct to Karen's prediction, she had a foul mouth and a foul nickname assigned to him. He found it amusing the foul mouth evaporated as soon his. No, their mother came within hearing range. Their travels ended in the middle of a forest in the Land of Sound. Formerly known as the Land of Rice until Orochimaru set up shop. A massive entrance descended into the ground. Otogakure is underground, he asked. Karen beside him nodded. Yes, don't underestimate it because it isn't a big village like Konoha. There are multiple other bases in the area, with civilian villages for support and to receive clients. Although not truly hidden, we are harder to find than the big 5 hidden villages. Although with our rise, it might be the big 6 soon. She quipped with a smile. Not might Karen-chan, Kushina spoke as she sneaked up behind the pair, hugging Naruto. Does she always sneak up on us when we are talking? Naruto couldn't help but wonder. We will tolerate Konoha joining us in the big 6 as you put it, but we will reduce it to the traditional 5 soon. Now come on you two, time to show Naruken. Naruto had stopped sighing at the cute name, certain his mother would be calling him that for the rest of his life. His new room. If I remember correctly, Naruken also wants some Uzumaki-grade red hair any? Naruto nodded in confirmation. They quickly joined the rows of ninja entering the hideout, making good progress as they moved clear to form a path for their leader. Naruto noted his mother commanded genuine respect, and for some, gratitude from the Oto shinobi. Thankfully his mother drew all the attention. He knew that most of Oto knew about the fox he carried. So far he hadn't had a nasty glance, although there was some curiosity, mostly from the females. Naruto was not sure it was because of the fox, or because they tried to figure out if they could get close to him, and thus to the leader of the village. He decided to keep his distance for now, and once he got Hinata out of Konoha, he could explore a relationship with her. They entered the underground base, moving quickly through the throng. As they moved deeper into the base it became quieter. Through some wide-open doors he saw labs of all kinds. Some filled with workbenches for metal and wood. Other contained rows upon rows of misty tubes filled with things. He was soon shown his room. Far larger than his apartment but the same completeness without being overly luxurious. He was then shown around the base by his mother, who took the opportunity to inspect morale and health of her troops. At the end of the day, he wanted to rest in his room, but his mother dragged him to her own. "Naruken, we have a lot of cuddle time to make up for," she asked almost pleadingly, and Naruto could not find it in himself to deny her. Anoki, the old Sandaime Tsuchikage of Iwagakure read with certain satisfaction the first reports his spies managed to write up and send to him about Konoha's invasion by Suna and a newfangled village called Oto. His first reaction was to rapidly mobilize his forces and finish the job, but it was unknown just how much damage the invasion had done. All he knew the equally old Sandaime Hokage fell in battle, but his replacement was still unknown. Furthermore the status of the two loyal Sannin were unknown. An old rapport had Tsunade still drowning her past, while Jiraiya was gallivanting, claiming to be running a spy network. Stupid youngsters, both of them. They have no clue what it means to be a shinobi, the old Kage ranted in his head. However, all was not well at home. The mercenary group Akatsuki, which usually took the most riskiest missions, stopped doing them a year ago, painfully revealing that IWA over-relied on the mercenary group. And then there was the disappearance of Rashi. The man traveled through the land of Earth and its allied nations to better understand the beast he contained. But Anoki knew, despite all his stubbornness, which according to some, was worse than his own. "I am not stubborn, you damn youngsters." Anoki knew if IWA was going into war, he could be relied on. But now, he hadn't found a trace of the man for 3 months. The last time his network lost him, it was only for a month and a half. This was double the time. Their remaining Jinchuriki was Han, who camped out deep in the mountain, detesting humanity to the core. His spirit broke once he was looked upon as a monster when he lost control in his younger days, harming a few fellow ninja. Since then, all the ninja were wary from him, including his own friends. So disgusted by their behavior, he left IWA. Anoki decided to let the steam-armored man cool off, expecting him to return once he got himself together. He never did. Although Anoki thought he could force the man to fight for IWA again, he would be an unstable ally, something you could not use during the war. And then there was the unknown Kyubi Jinchuriki. After the yellow flashy bastard used his own life to stuff the Kyubi away in someone, Hiruzen had publicly announced a yellow-haired Uzumaki was the new container. The fence-sitter thought it was a foil, despite the genuine mistreatment the boy suffered according to his spies. It was quite underhanded, not completely Hiruzen's style, but Anoki wasn't one to judge. His latest spy reports had no information on it, but a clash between Suna's transformed Ichibi container against Konoha's Kyubi-1 would be noticed. But instead he had his reports claiming Jiraiya took care of the Ichibi together with a large summoned toad. He would have to wait on new reports from Suna to see if the Ichibi was taken care of permanently. So deep in his thoughts, he had not noticed his granddaughter sneak up to him. "You are getting old, Grandpa, perhaps you should retire and give the hat to someone younger." Anoki whipped up, and with a loud crash something snapped in his back, causing him to whip forward again with a cry, "Arg, my back." Recovering with a glare to his granddaughter, he grounded out, what brings you here, Kuratsuchi? The easygoing aura around her disappeared, and she asked seriously, is it true Konoha was attacked? Anoki gave a weary nod. Already suspecting the impetuous youngster would say next. Are we going to finish them off? Spot on. Anoki shook his head, we don't know enough, Kuratsuchi, we cannot charge into battle without knowing how strong Konoha is. The girl frowned, and Anoki sighed. I am also worried about Rashi. His granddaughter nodded in agreement, aware how important Jinchuriki could be. So you are going to sit on the fence for now? Kuratsuchi stated. Anoki couldn't help but chuckle at the jab at his title. High upon the tower in Kumogakure, the Yondaime Reikage read through his own set of spy reports. His own slightly sparser than the ones Anoki had. He had, in hindsight foolishly, discounted the new village, thinking it was another minor village that in respect to the major ones, barely had any power. Only for this minor village to join up with Suna, and give Konoha an respectable smack around he could appreciate. He did hope Madogai survived the invasion, he still wanted to test himself against the man's speed. Still, the Konoha's Kyubi container was still unknown, unlike Anoki however, it did not write off Uzumaki Naruto however, well aware thanks to his brother that an Uzumaki contained a Kyubi before. And having clashed with Namikaze Minato, he saw bits of the yellow flash in the photos he had of the boy. However, thanks to Hyuga debacle, should Kumo be caught trying to kidnap children again, nations would be ganging up on Kumo just to protect their own. Kumo furthermore isolated themselves by not allying with minor nations, meaning any hostile nation could quite easily march into Kumo's mountains, damaging the homeland on the way. Capitalizing on Konoha's assault crossed A's mind, by either raiding Konoha or attacking Oto to prevent it become too strong. But the recent upsurge of Akatsuki interference in missions and the killing of high-bounty ninjas worried him. He was not aware, nor had any reports of some kind of rebellion against himself of Kumo. But his ninjas were targeted nonetheless by the suspected IWA-aligned group. The most recent loss worried him the most however. Ni Yujito, container of the Nibi, lost a week ago when her team was ambushed. She heroically held off a pair of strength nin, but failed to escape herself, and was gone by the time an angered killer bee with reinforcements made their way to her location, only the large scorch and claw marks indicating she used the full power she had to her command. Only the parts of a torn cloak they found, bearing the red cloud of Akatsuki, showed she had any success resisting her capture or assassination. They were not sure not, unlike the other lost without body ninja taken from Kumo had bounties, Yujito didn't. Security around Killer Bee already had been strengthened in case they were after the Bju. Since Nibi was not set onto a rampage towards Kumo, or spotted anywhere else, he still held up hope the girl was alive. But he knew every day without hearing anything, the bigger the chances were she was no longer alive. Knew if the group had access to a seal master, they might induct the power of Nibi into their group. That was a horrible prospect, and he started to make plans to deal with the group. Pain, self-proclaimed god of Amigakure, gazed at the plant man called Zetsu. Report, he intoned. The rest of the group watching on silently. Konoha has been attacked by Suna and Oto. Black Zetsu spoke. I believe our former companion Orochimaru is no longer alive. The attack was orchestrated by a woman called Uzumaki Kushina. Incidentally, the same family name as the Kyubi Jinchuriki, White Zetsu added, unnecessarily ignoring the chatter involving artful explosions, sacrifices to a dark god, the lamenting of lost bounties. Uchiha Itachi could not help but worry and wonder. He worried if his brother survived the invasion, and wonder how Kushina, a good friend of his mother, could be alive. And somehow in control of what they thought was Orochimaru's pet village. Now capable of taking on one of the big five. Did the Ichibi and Kyubi Jinchuriki survive? Pain said, cutting through the chatter. Yes, both parts of the plant man responded. The Kyubi Jinchuriki went with the Oto forces, but we do not know where he is now. Find him, Pain curtly responded. The rest of you collect bounties or train. The situation is too tense to continue capturing the Jinchuriki. And Kumo seems to be aware of our group, avoid the country for now and do not draw more attention. High Leader Sama, the rest drawled, before disappearing. Despite the hectic days around the rebuilding, Irika managed to organize and get together for his graduating class. Team 8 and 10 were present, and Guy, who heard it, decided his team should come too, in an bizarre display of logic, and not youthfulness, that the fresh genin could more easily relate to those who were not at least 5 years older than them. Team 7 was however completely absent. Irika found out through Hana, Kiba's brother, how Sakura met her end, frozen in fear and crushed by abjure. Sasuke did not show up, his antisocial behavior having shot up tremendously ever since he ran away from the Ichibi. Verbally attacking anyone who irritated him and seeing himself above the manual work that he genin were assigned to repair the worst of the village. And then Naruto. Irika honestly did not expect Naruto to turn traitor, although rumors were flying that the Otokage was also an Uzumaki, in which case it made sense Naruto would go with someone with his clan. Despite his and Mizuki's best attempts on the Third's orders to hide it. Irika never understood the order, but he followed it dutifully just like the order he had to make friends with the boy. He was glad that order was off paper, otherwise he'd spent more time with Ibiki than he already had. The man was truly peeved that a young genin managed to fool him, and as his teacher, Irika was a prime target for a conversation with the man. Never again, Irika thought, shivering. Of the teachers, only Kurenai was present. Having been badly hurt by the Otokage, the woman seemed stuck between pensive, angry, and betrayed. The others were already on missions or patrols despite their wounds, trying to project a strong image of an unhurt Konoha to ward off Iwa or Kumo from attacking. Or preventing another sneak attack from Suna and Oto. Irika was pleased to note that despite that most genin had to kill, they were doing quite well, all of them had a clan to fall back to. All of them were unaware that Naruto had betrayed Konoha. Furthermore, it seemed Guy's logic was actually true, reminding Irika to look underneath the underneath about Guy and his excellence as a teacher. Iruka-sensei, where is Naruto-baka? Ino asked. Irika sighed, he had hoped none of them would ask. Loser is probably stuck in the hospital after he tripped himself, Kiba muttered. To Irika's surprise, Niji shot him a glare, if he is a loser, then you are worse than a loser. He spoke in a, "I better than thou" tone. In his corners of his eyes, Irika saw Kurenai stiffen to his confusion. Naruto turned traitor during the invasion, a voice spoke bluntly behind Irika, who cringed at the blunt admission, before shivering when he recognized the voice. He turned around slowly and spoke neutrally, Ibikizan. He allowed a hint of annoyance to slip into his voice, was it needed to bring the truth out so bluntly? Ibiki merely grunted in annoyance. Did any of you speak with Naruto during the third exam matches or the invasion? He asked directly, raking the group with his eyes. All of them shook their heads, but Ibiki's expert eyes saw the body language betray the young Hyuga heiress. He stepped towards Hinata. Are you sure? Threatening overtones coming into his voice, drawing a frown from Kurenai. To the rest of Team Guy's surprise, Niji suddenly stood protectively next to Hinata. Are you implying Lady Hinata is a liar? Ibikizan? He spoke neutrally. Hinata, surprised, couldn't help but softly whisper, Nijinai. Ibiki narrowed his eyes at the boy for ruining his chance. I'll get the girl sooner or later. He once again raked the group with his eyes. If any of you suddenly remember something, find me, he grounded out as he glared at the Hyuga girl. He whirled around dramatically before stomping out. Irika sighed, he could understand Ibiki's reason to gun for the girl, it was well known in the class she had a crush on the boy, but he never noticed. As the genin started to try to process that one of their classmates had turned traitor, most of them flabbergasted. Actually, it isn't that surprising, considering his own class treated him like an loser and an outcast. Irika mused as the subject of Naruto reminded him how few bonds the boy had with the village. Niji frowned as he saw Hinata just listen to the conversations. He had quickly concluded despite being a traitor of Konoha, his words still rang true. I had Heard she had a crush on him, she seems unaffected. Did she know? He asked himself. She wouldn't harm Konoha, he decided. Knowing her kind-hearted personality would not allow innocent people to get hurt. Irika sighed as the genin switched topics from their wayward classmate to the rumors Ino had heard about the new Hokage, the Sandame Haven fallen in battle. Without the elders, choosing a new Hokage would be either done by the daimyo, who already clearly stated that figuring out this mess was in Konoha's hands. Stating he would be far too busy to prepare his country for war. After digging into the older Konoha's laws, the responsibility of choosing a new Hokage fell to the clan leaders making up Konoha. Although the major clan leaders survived, they usually had to deal with damage to their compounds, either by the attacks, or the assassins out for their heads. In the end however, yesterday evening it was announced in the higher ranks that Danzo the Warhawk would take office until Tsunade of the Sannin was retrieved to become Hokage. Tobi narrowed his eyes as Zetsu gave him a more complete rapport. Despite his best attempts, the revolution against his puppet Mizukage were gaining more momentum the day. Granted, it would take another year if no outside help came, the sheer strength of his puppet slowing the rebels down. However, it would still mean another delay of a year to 2 years thanks to the time it would take Sanbai, sealed inside his puppet to reform. And that was on top of the delay caused thanks to a supposedly dead woman's assault on Konoha, setting all nations on edge, and holding their containers close to their chest. First you steal a ring from me Orochimaru, and now you are involved training the one in delaying my plans, he spoke to the thin air, brooding how he would get revenge on the Snake Sannin's successor. Several days later at Oto Naruto loved his mother, he really did. But spending the last few days effectively joined at her hip started to grate on him. As interesting it is to see his mother run her village, experiment on some poor criminal. I still need to get used to that. He thought on the grisly sight. Or training with her on the use of his chains, his fight with Niji complete dissected like the aforementioned criminal. Naruto wanted some alone time. So when his mother sat down again for her daily slog of paperwork involving assigning her people to high-ranked missions, logistics, spy reports and other stuff that made Naruto's head spin, he seized his chance to escape. He did not even have some privacy in the bath, his mother calmly walking in like it's normal, wanting to wash him because she couldn't when he was a baby. Completely ignoring his embarrassed protests. Naruto planned to make a runner if she walked in again this evening. But now to escape Mom first, Naruto thought. Mom, I am going to explore Oto for a bit. He stated, walking without hesitation towards the door. He did not see the raised eyebrow from his mother. I showed you around didn't I, she asked. Naruto held back the where I can find you or Karen that lay on his tongue. Instead he said, I want to look around myself as he turned around. He saw something flash in Kushina's eyes before she nodded. Be careful Naruken. Naruto walked out, frown on his face, I am inside your own secret hidden base underground, he thought. He started to wander through the long hallways, peeking into rooms time from time. Some were for training, others led to sleeping areas. He spotted a couple of new eating areas with different food, as much as he liked ramen like his mother, he still preferred some variety. He once again peeked into another room, this time he saw a fairly small room compared to the other ones. Something was inscribed into the walls, a single person at the far side of the room. Curiosity increasing, he silently walked into the room. As he came closer, he saw names inscribed on the wall with 2 dates. In a flash came understanding, this was Oto's memorial stone, where the name of the fallen were inscribed. He glanced to the side where the person, a girl. An oddly familiar one stood silently sobbing, her fingers tracing a pair of names. He silently moved in closer to read them, trying to identify the girl. Abumi Zaku, Kinyuta Dosu, Naruto read, drawing a surprised gasp that turned the attention from the girl to him. The girl's eyes widened in surprise, before she stepped back bowing, Uzumaki-sama, she spoke formally. Naruto started to fidget awkwardly, not used to people suddenly showing him respect. Just call me Naruto please, he said. The girl stood back up, unsure what to do. Trying to break the silence, Naruto asked bluntly. How did they die? The girl's face fell again, causing Naruto to wish he kept his mouth. After a moment of silence, she turned back towards the names, speaking softly. We had an sabotage and explosive note planting mission. She paused, stuck in memories. The sabotage went perfectly, but towards our targets to plant the notes we ran into a jonin. They both jumped on him, telling me to go on. And I went. The girl slumped into herself. I should have fought and died with them, she said after a moment of silence. Naruto's mind whirled, completely out of his depth. Suddenly words came to him. When a person has something important they want to protect, that's when they can become truly strong. I wanted to protect the person important to them. He echoed, using and slightly changing Haku's words. Her head whipped back towards him, her eyes wide. Before they softened again, she touched the names, smiling softly. You are right. They really cared. Sorry Zaku, Dosu. You wouldn't want me to mope, would you? She bowed to Naruto. Thank you for your wisdom, Naruto-sama. Naruto blinked, but by the time he recovered, she was already gone. As he stood silently in the tribute to the dead, he couldn't help but replay Haku's words in his mind. Back then he had written them off, not truly believing them. But between Haku's actions, those of Zaku and Dosu, and now that he had genuinely something to fight for, he couldn't help but to find the truth in them. Roaming his eyes over all the names, she spoke softly. I will protect those important to me. I finally found the people who care about me. Mom, Karen. Tayuya when I know her better, Guren. And so many more I still have to meet here. I will become strong to keep them safe. With a final nod, he turned around and left the room. His conviction strengthened with his new goal. Kushina scowled, displeased with Inoki. Couldn't that fence-sitter not at least give a prod? She rambled in her own mind. Konoha would be now less inclined to strengthen their northwestern borders. They might have enough manpower to spare to invade the land of sound. Somebody knocked on her office door. Come in, she spoke with authority, expertly hiding her disappointment when a messenger came in, handing her the latest spy reports in the land of fire. Naruto must still be exploring around, Kushina thought as she flipped open the report. Am I pulling him too hard towards me? She asked herself. Well aware of Naruto's discomfort whenever she washed him or dragged him around the base. She then read, Shimura Danzo has become temporary Hokage until Tsunade is found. Kushina blinked once, blinked twice. How the hell did you survive Databane? She exploded in her office, her normally well-reined in temper flaring up, her usually well-hidden verbal tic showing itself. I stabbed him right in the heart. If that didn't get him, the poisons on Kusanagi would, she raged in her mind as she paced through the office. Would he somehow have gotten me with a genjutsu? She sorted through her memories of the encounter. He never made hand seals, and would not have time to use some kind of seal. Only the Sharingan could cast genjutsu. Of course, she felt like slapping herself. The Warhawk had no problem selling her off to get Mokuton replacement arm. Robbing a couple of Uchiha corpses for their eyes would not be below him. He probably replaced that blind eye of his then, perhaps some expert made see-through seals. That way the eye managed to hypnotize me. I thought I had stabbed him, but I didn't. Damn it. She theorized. With an huff she sat back down again. As she read through her reports, she saw that her assassination teams completely failed, narrowing her eyes again in anger. How or why did they fail? Did we underestimate the strength of the clan leaders or did we lack information? She grit her teeth before forcing herself to calm down. Right, not the time to start making more mistakes just because I had to angry, she told herself. Another person knocked on the door, letting the messenger in again. Reports from Kyumo Otokagesama. The man spoke, getting a raised eyebrow from Kushina. They are early. She stated. The man nodded. I was told you would understand once you read them, ma'am. Kushina took the reports and flipped them open, laying the Fire Country ones to the side. This time she raised her eyebrow again. Somebody is mauling the high bounty ninja of Kyumo. And took the Nibi Jinchuriki. After a moment of thought, must be Akatsuki, Kakuzu with whatever partner he kept alive for now if Orochimaru's notes about his rage must be believed. She frowned further. I need to tell Naruto about Akatsuki, he will distrust me if I don't. But how do you tell your son roughly 10 strength ninja are out for your tailed beast sealed inside you? She blinked with realization. Orochimaru never knew the true goal of Akatsuki, just that they were going to collect tailed beasts. Kushina's eyebrows knitted in concentration. So far I know, they most likely got the 4-tailed beast container and 2-tailed container, neither beast has been spotted. So they have not been set free. Did they plan to reseal the beasts into themselves? Or do they want something more? Kushina suddenly had a flash of inspiration. Naruto is on talking terms with the fur ball, the thing. I only growled and shouted at me, but perhaps Naruto could ask why somebody would want all 9 beasts. I can't imagine sealing more than one beast in a person would be survivable. Kushina sighed. At least Akatsuki's actions caused the Muscle Mountain to back off. I don't have to increase patrols to worry about incursions from the Land of Lightning. She spoke to herself. She closed the Kyumo reports and went back to the ones of the Land of Fire, and was glad to see after the initial bad news, the rest of the invasion did the damage expected, forcing Konoha to buy weapons and food from the outside, paying massive amounts of money. I need to find some missing nin groups to assault the convoys. She noted to herself, planning her next stage of keeping Konoha from assaulting Oto until it was ready to repel the Leaf's might. By the time Kushina was done planning, Naruto returned from his chat with the girl, his thoughts still pensive. Ah, there you are Naruken, follow me to the training ground, Kushina said as she picked up a bunch of files, guiding Naruto to the closest training ground which was empty. Now Naruto, sit down. The lack of nickname instantly caught Naruto's attention. There is something you need to know. Kushina started bluntly. There is a group called Akatsuki, it is composed of roughly 8 to 10 missing nin of strength. Naruto's eyes widened in surprise, but before he could ask. They are hunting all of the 9-tailed beasts, 2 of your fellow containers already have been caught. The 2 tails and 4 tails container. Naruto was aware he stood no chance against a strength ninja, so what do I do? Stay hidden underground for the rest of my life, he asked with some distaste. Kushina sighed in her mind, if she had her way, she would. But she was certain Naruto would stir crazy, she would. No, you are going to train smart and hard. For now you seem to be a bit too young to use the shadow clone technique to your advantage. And I'd rather not have my son brain dead. Naruto nodded his agreement. Here are the files of members I know about thanks to Orochimaru, however he has left the group a long time ago. You can recognize them from the black cloaks with red clouds on them. Naruto nodded, and quickly scanned his way through the files while Kushina pitched in extra information where she could. These are dangerous people, Naruto concluded. Yes, they are, Kushina agreed. She stared straight in Naruto's eyes. I am not going to lock you up here as much as I want to, but the moment you see one of them, run straight back home. Understood. Naruto frowned, what about my team? They are of no interest to Akatsuki unless they run into Kakuzu and have a bounty on their heads. Which most Oto members don't. Naruto slowly nodded. Now, I need you to talk to Kyubi and ask him the following. Naruto tilted his head in curiosity. He swore he heard his mother murmur at Kawaii before she spoke up again. Ask him what somebody would gain by gathering all the tailed beasts. Kushina was silent for a moment. Inform him that I suspect that the masked man that attacked the night of your birth might be part of that group. He did state he wanted Kyubi. Seeing Naruto's curious look at the last part, it is a suspicion, I have no proof, but the man was strong enough for that group, perhaps he died during the meantime, or we know less about the group than we thought. Naruto sat down, and started to channel a sliver Kyubi's chakra. "Kyubi," he called out in his mind, but it stayed silent. He called again, but nothing happened. He frowned. "He is not responding, I need to go into the seal." Kushina frowned, but nodded. Inside the seal, Naruto quickly made it through the familiar hallway, splashing his way through. He soon made it into the enormous room. On the other side he saw the fox sleeping on its paws. Naruto stood indecisively. Waking up the fox would result in him dealing with a cranky fox, but his mother's question was a good one. He decided to risk it. "Kyubi," he spoke. "An eye bigger than Naruto shot open." "Do you need my power already again?" the beast grumbled. Naruto shook his head. "I need your wisdom, Kyubi." This clearly raised Kyubi's interest, whose other eye shot upon, his ears subtly shifting to hear Naruto better. "Ask," the beast grumbled. "My mother suspects that the man that hypnotized you during that night is part of a group called Akatsuki. He was cut off by the fox." "Then destroy that group," the fox growled. Naruto shook his head. "We don't know where they are." This elicited another growl from Kyubi. "This group has as a mission to collect all the tailed beasts for some unknown reason." The growls suddenly stopped. "They wouldn't," Kyubi said softly. Naruto's eyes shot open by the un-Kyubi behavior Kyubi was displaying. "What?" he asked. "You humans would not be crazy enough to unleash the beast my father could not defeat." Kyubi shook his head. "Leave me," the fox said abruptly. Naruto blinked by the sudden change. He did notice the respect Kyubi held for his father, before he remembered a question he had for Kyubi since the meet-up with Gaara, but always forgot thanks to other things. The Sand siblings called Ichibi Shikaku. "What is your name, Kyubi?" Naruto asked. Another growl from the fox told Naruto he was in no mood to answer. Training ground. Naruto opened his eyes again, his shirt suddenly lifted while his mother inspected the seal. "Mom?" he asked surprised. She smiled in return. "Sorry Naruto, but I wanted to make sure the seal was functioning correctly." Naruto nodded hesitantly, his distrust kicking from his years in Konoha before he reined it back in. "So what did Kyubi say?" Kushina asked, unaware of Naruto's short inner struggle. "Aside from demanding that I destroy Akatsuki, not much. Only that they wouldn't do something that would unleash the beast his father could not defeat." There was something like respect in his voice for this father. Kushina's eyes widened in surprise. "Father? Beast?" she asked, before sighing. "I need to read up on the old legends, perhaps there is an hint on what kind beast. Although whoever Kyubi's father was, must be a strong being if you are right that Kyubi respects him." She sighed, "Try to get more out of him later when you think you can. Now, it is time for another training session, you need to become strong enough to fight them off." Kushina spoke cheerily. Naruto smiled, ready for some more real training with his mother. Every session he felt his skills increasing with her. A week later Jiraiya smiled as he finally had a lead on Tsunade. After Hiruzen died and the initial post-invasion chaos, the different clan heads tried to nominate him as Hokage. Jiraiya had no interest in the job, despite training a damn good student for it in his own opinion. He suggested that Tsunade, his teammate as a Senju, would take over. Of course Hiruzen's old friend Danzo protested, correctly stating she had not been in Konoha for ages. But with a laugh and a joke Jiraiya somehow managed to lay those worries to the side. It did not stop Danzo from becoming temporary Hokage. Jiraiya did not like it, but he had to agree that somebody would need to fill the post during the crisis in case Iwa or Kumo became opportunistic. Thankfully through his spy network he found out both were hesitating for unknown reasons. "Now, off to Tenzaku," he said as he took off, never noticing the courtesan he just drank with had an sound note tattoo on her hip. Kushina smiled slightly at the emergency dispatch from one of her spy handlers. Ever since she had received the news that Konoha was looking for Tsunade, she set her own spies on the loose. However, most of her spies were centered around military or civilian targets, so Tsunade successfully escaped her gaze and network. Thankfully, the buffoon that was Jiraiya talked to a courtesan, who in turn realized the relevance. The woman would be well rewarded. Denying Tsunade from Konoha would be a harder blow. As one of the best medics, if not the best, Tsunade would be able to increase the amount of ninja returning to duty, and lessen the casualties once Konoha would come to blows with either the Odo/Suna alliance or IWA. Recruiting Tsunade to work for Odo would be harder, but Kushina was confident she could do it. It does mean I have to go personally, however. That means leaving Naruto at the base. She thought with a frown, before cheering up, or I could take him with me and teach him summoning. Kushina rose from her office seat and headed towards the training ground, suspecting Naruto would be trying to perfect his futon, Detapa Jutsu. I need to find him a teacher for his wind nature, Kushina thought with a frown. None of them come to the top of my head, however. It is a rare nature. Perhaps I can get someone from Suna. She heard a shout of futon, Detapa, and saw her son launching a well-concentrated cylinder of energy, flinging the target dummies against the wall, cracking the wood that made them. I see you are improving, Naruken, she spoke encouragingly. He turned around and smiled, thanks Mom. Another training session, he asked hopefully. She shook her head. No, a mission. Do you know who Senju Tsunade is? Naruto nodded, one of the 3 Sannin. She is a medic if I remember correctly. Kushina smiled, correct Naruken. She is an excellent medic, far better than Kabuto or Karen, although Kabuto will most likely disagree with me. She also summons slugs to aid her with that. Naruto nodded attentively. Now Tsunade is a far-removed cousin of ours. Uzumaki Mito is her grandmother, who was related to my mother. Naruto tilted his head. Is that why she left Konoha? Kushina shook her head. She left after her lover died in her hands during the Second War. She saw Naruto's frown. In her mind, Konoha claimed a lot from her, her brother, her husband-to-be, and perhaps more we don't know about. I have information Jiraiya is trying to find her too. She is to become the next Hokage. We are going to prevent that by convincing her to come to Oto instead. You think we can do that? Naruto asked, unsure. Sounds like that woman has issues if she has avoided Konoha for so long. He frowned, why do you need me? Kushina chuckled, we need to discredit Jiraiya before moving to our arguments. IL will explain those later. Naruto nodded, should it come to blows however, stay away from the fighting, understood? The Sannin are far above your level. Naruto nodded again, the way he was manhandled by Jiraiya fresh in his memories. I won't be making that mistake again. We will leave in a couple of hours, understood? Tell Karen we will both be gone. I'll inform Kimimaro to look after Odo with Karen while I am busy. Kimimaro? Naruto asked, unaware of this apparently important person. He is a member of the Kagaya clan. He is a couple years older. I'll introduce the two of you before we leave. Alright Mom, see you in a couple of hours, Naruto spoke before he ran off to find his sister. She is probably in a lab looking at one thing or the other, Naruto thought with a roll of his eyes. Unlike his mother or Karen, he had nothing with all the scientist stuff despite having watched his mother at work. Apparently a sentiment he shared with Tayuya. Karen. He called out carefully, in case she was doing something explosive. She stopped peeking into the microscope. Naruto, she asked. What brings you to the lab? Mom and I are going to recruit Tsunade. Karen blinked. Senju Tsunade, best medic of the elemental nations. Naruto nodded. His shoulders were suddenly gripped tight by Karen, her eyes boring into his own. Do not fail, she said icily. Naruto gulped by the sudden 180 personality change his sister suddenly did. The normally happy warm girl staring at him, she would murder him at the mere mention of failure. Yes Karen, he stuttered out. She gave him a firm nod before releasing. I can't wait to discuss all kinds of medical things with her, she said cheerily as she went back to the thing she was working on. You. Mom mentioned you'd be looking after Oto with Kimimaro. Karen simply waved it off, got it, expected Mom to do that. Have fun. Naruto, message delivered, advanced backwards, rapidly. Before his sister could switch personality again. 2 hours later he stood at the main entrance, and saw his mother approaching with a pale-skinned, gray-haired man in tow. He had 2 red dots above his green eyes. Ah, Naruken. This is Kimimaro. Kimimaro, this is my son Naruto. Kimimaro bowed, I am honored to meet you Naruto-sama. She spoke formally. Naruto withheld the urge to sigh. Glad to meet you Kimimaro-san. Naruto responded informally, but failed to get a reaction out of the stoic Kagaya. Guren soon joined the group. Kushina-sama, Naruto, she greeted. Guren, Naruto responded warmly to the woman, having spoken with her a couple times after arriving at Oto. Kushina handed Kimimaro several seal tags. Use those to summon a messenger snake should something untoward happen during these tense times Kimimaro. She narrowed her eyes. Do not afraid to alert me when you are in the slightest doubt, understood? Understood Kushina-sama, Kimimaro responded with a bow, accepting the tags like they were holy relics. With a nod, she sent the man away. Alright, Guren, Naruto. We are heading towards Tenzaku. It is in fire country, so we need to cross the border in a rapid pace. Afterwards we will not have much time to rest. Jiraiya has to travel further, but he has several days of traveling time ahead of us. Naruto and Guren nodded. We will spend the rest of today heading towards the border. Before we leave, however. Kushina bit her thumb, and formed hand signs. Soon a white snake poofed into existence. The snake wore a pointy hat of sorts and was smoking through a long cigarette holder. Sajasama, Kushina greeted with respect. Kushinachan, the snake responded with warmth. It is time for your son to sign the contract, he asked, waving a large scroll he held with the tip of his long body. Kushina nodded, show me the boy, the snake demanded. Kushina gestured for Naruto to step forward. The sage snake encircled the boy once, before rising its head on eye level with Naruto, boring into his eyes. I approve, he has a fire in his eyes and his mind is cunning. He expertly whipped open the contract with his tail. Write your name in blood next to your mother's. The sage ordered. Naruto glanced at his mother, who nodded. He quickly did so. It has been signed, the sage intoned. Before giving a final nod and disappearing in a puff of smoke. Congratulations Naruto, Guren said, Kushina merely smiled. I will explain you the theory and how to use snakes inside battlefield and out on as we travel. We will practice summoning them once we are back. We can't afford you accidentally giving away our location by summoning Aoda, the snake boss. Naruto nodded, understanding. Although he was a bit disappointed inside he couldn't try his hand at summoning. The group set off, Kushina talking the entire way about the advantages and disadvantages of the snake summons. Guren plodded along silently, her own thoughts absorbed about her own adoptive son and how he entered the final year in training to become a genin. The group infiltrated the borders of the Land of Fire with ease. Konoha's troops far too stretched to properly guard the borders directly to the Land of Sound. The majority of the troops they had available for patrol focused around the Land of Grass and reinforcing the Taki patrols. Thus, 4 days later Kushina, Guren and Naruto made it to Tenzaku. Overlooking the walled town, Kushina spoke, Guren, you are an unknown for Jiraiya and whoever he has. She quickly summoned a tiny snake, send this little one back should you find Tsunade, Naruto, and I will skirt around to see if there are any signs of Tsunade leaving. I doubt she would however, she is chronic gambler, and there is that gambling event happening. Guren nodded, hit her headband and set off toward the city, hiding the snake in her clothing. Naruto and Kushina set off, slowly circling around the city. They made it roughly a quarter way through before they heard a loud rumbling sound, like the earth was being crushed open. With a nod, the pair headed towards the area the sound came from. Naruto. Kushina spoke seriously, don't speak, understood? Naruto looked quizzically, but nodded. Kushina summoned another snake after another leap. Find the crystal-smelling woman inside the town and tell her to head here. She ordered. The snake shot off towards the town. The pair suddenly leaped into a clearing. Roughly in the center of it was a familiar tall, spiky long-haired man. On the other side of him was an irritated blonde woman, the ground cracked beneath her feet. To her side was a worried black-haired young woman who looked apprehensive. Era, if it isn't Jiraiya, Kushina spoke. Jiraiya whirled around to face her, narrowing his eyes. So it is true. I still cannot believe the wife of my student attacked Konoha. Kushina chuckled, I haven't been his wife in 13 years, Jiraiya, not since he decided to make my baby boy into the next Jinchuriki. Tsunade looked confused at the interplay and interrupted Jiraiya, who was about to respond. Who are you? She asked. Uzumaki Kushina, and this is my son Uzumaki Naruto. Tsunade blinked. Uzumaki, she asked softly. Don't believe them, Tsunade, that woman killed sensei. Era, telling another half-truth, Jiraiya. She turned to Tsunade, a spinning whirlpool greets the gowing tree, may the whirlpool stay strong, and the tree grow great. Jiraiya looked confused for a moment before he figured it out, muttering a curse under his breath. Tsunade gaped in surprise. You see, your dear teammate Jiraiya here lied to you about Uzushiogekure's fall, didn't you, Jiraiya? Kushina mocked. Jiraiya started to sweat. After all, Tsunade's grandmother did not die of old age, did she? What do you mean? Tsunade demanded, but before Kushina could respond, Jiraiya bellowed, enough of your lies. He leapt back, weaving through a short set of hand seals, Kuchiyos no Jutsu, and in a large poof of smoke, Gamabunta arrived. Kushina leapt back, dragging Naruto with her. She released her son and quickly mimicked Jiraiya. Aoda, the snake summon boss appearing coiled up, ready to strike, Kushina and Naruto on his head. Jiraiya, why did you summon me? Gamabunta bellowed, what do you wish from me, mistress? Aoda asked politely. Aoda, can you handle Gamabunta? Kushina asked her snake. I would require assistance, the snake replied, slightly lowering his head. Gamabunta narrowed his eyes. I would expect to be facing Manda, the toad said to Jiraiya. Kushina decided to answer the toad. Manda has been dead for a while. I will be helping you, Aoda, Naruto, hold on tight. While the summons prepared to rumble, Tsunade and her apprentice, Shizen rapidly backpedaled. She was a true Uzumaki, she knew the old clan greetings. Tsunade thought furiously. The busty blonde was quite confused. She was approached earlier the day by Jiraiya, who confirmed the rumors she heard Konoha was attacked, claiming the life of her old sensei Sarutobi. After receiving the news, she thanked the pervert and left, only for the pervert to follow her and bring her news that made her very unhappy. Apparently it was decided she would become the 5th Hokage. Something Tsunade had no intention to become. She did not want to lay down her life for the village that had taken everything from her, her lover, her baby, her brother, her family. What did that woman mean with Jiraiya telling half-truths? What did he hide? From me, why would he hide it from me? She kept thinking as the pair gained more distance, her apprentice shooting her worried glances she ignored all the way. Behind them Aoda struck forward before Gamabunta could draw his tanto, forcing the toad into a hurried block with the sheathed blade. The snake ducked under the toad's clumsy counter-punch, quickly enveloping the toad. On top of the toad's head, Jiraiya quickly formed hand seals. Katan, Enden. He quickly spat a large bullet of flaming oil towards the side of the snake, who quickly loosened its hold to escape the worst, the technique to close and too fast for Kushina to counter. Gamabunta used this opportunity to break free, drawing his tanto, forcing Aoda to retreat lest he be cut up. The snake slithered around, probing for a weak point in Gamabunta's defense. On its head, Kushina sent Naruto to the sidelines, who did that without protest, painfully realizing he was out of his league again. As the summons went for another round, their respective summoners started to fling fire jutsu at each other, their summons either dodging or blocking the attacks. Tsunade started to lose her patience. With a quick set of hand signs, she slammed her palm into the ground. In a storm of smoke, a gigantic white-blue slug appeared. Tsunade and Shizen standing on top of her head. The toad and the snake took no notice however, and neither did their summoners. Tsunade's eyebrow twitched at being ignored. Usually people take notice when a building-sized slug appears out thin air. Katsuyu, use your acid to split them apart. Hi Tsunadesima, the slug spoke respectfully, before suddenly spitting a steam of acid with a Zeshi Nensen. The acid arced towards the battling combatants, who saw the dark yellow substance falling towards them. Gamabunta leapt back while Aoda rapidly slithered underground. Kushina leaping far, to land on top of Aoda's resurfacing head as the ground behind them was dissolved into a steaming slag. Katsuyu. What is the meaning of this? Gamabunta bellowed, offended. My apologies, my master ordered it, Gamabunta-san. Katsuyu responded. Aoda slithered warily, slowly making some more distance between the pair, knowing well enough the last time they were together, Manda was attacked by both. Guren meanwhile joined Naruto hiding in the trees, exchanging terse greetings as they watched warily. Damn it, why didn't Mom teach me how to summon? I could send her help otherwise, Naruto thought, frustrated. What is going on here? The blonde Sannin grounded out. Her temper causing her to wish she could ground the Uzumaki woman and her teammate into paste to stop the headache she knew was coming up. Unaware to all those present, there were more observers than just Naruto and Guren. Hey guys! I hope you liked the video, then don't forget to like and share this video, also subscribe to the channel. This is Raven Sage signing off.